Ready? Everybody ready? Sally, you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Jen, did you by any chance get my text earlier?
No, she did not.
I left you a text. I don't know if you have your phone there.
Stand by.
Thanks. All right, thank you. I'm ready.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the April meeting of the Zoning Board of Review. I'm Kate Atwater Butcher, the chair. We have Karen Browning, our new solicitor. Welcome. Jen Brady, our zoning official. And I'll let the rest of the board introduce, and Sally Broussard, our stenographer, is online, and the rest of the board can introduce themselves.
Robert Closter,
Judith Zernak. Susan Bush.
Mark McGuire.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna have a little bit of a rearrangement of the agenda this evening for the sake of, we have an attorney for the town that is sitting waiting for to advise us on decisions, and rather than have him wait through all the hearings, we will get this done first. So the first decision of the evening is actually going to be a discussion, because I don't know if anybody's made notes on it, but is Aldo Leone and Andiamo Zeke LLC, Plat 6, Lot 89, Weldon's Way, an application for an appeal by Aldo's Bakery of a notice of violation issued by the zoning official dated August 15th, 2022. It just, yeah, if you want to just go, yeah, that'd be great. Susan Bush is recused. So how's everybody feeling about what we heard? I'll go first. I think it is not an amusement park ride. I think it is I don't even know what they call it, a gaming device. It's a coin operated, it's a plug-in. It's not a permanent, it doesn't have to come on a tractor trailer. I mean, there's,
I think there's a common English understanding of what is an amusement ride. And
right. I mean, I don't think it's very much different than something that your kid rides on in front of Walmart, and that could be in front of the BIG. I mean, honestly, like, it's not. And I know that's not allowed. It's not, everything has to be inside. I will say, I do think that it should be inside. I don't think it should be. I don't think that they talk to the point of a consistent use of games outside. To, that no one really addressed that, other than they said that they had games outside, but I don't. They didn't say it was consistently, whether or not that use got abandoned. To have it outside, because they have to be inside.
I was under the impression that they did testify that they had continuously had it outside.
Judith, I'm sorry. You're going to need to speak into the mic, please.
Hey, yeah.
I thought I heard that they were consistently operating it outside.
No, not the carousel, but games in general.
Oh,
Outside, that they had, there wasn't a consistent. I didn't get a sense that it was a consistent use of games outside. Stevie's testified that they had games in the past outside, because all the games have to be by the regulations have to be inside. So
now.
now,
that's a new-
but
that's
so
a
that I'm saying,
newer
so if it wasn't a
regulation.
consistent use, then you've abandoned that use, the outside use, if you don't have it consistently, correct? I mean, if now the regulations say.
I thought I heard testimony that the carousel itself had been in consistent use.
Yes, no,
and
that's not.
uncha- And when we're not hearing, something about all of their gaming operations or equipment. We're
Well,
hearing the
when
carousel.
asked whether or not, because they're not gaming devices, is that what they're called, as
Yes,
gaming devices? Yeah, gaming devices, right? Are not permitted outside, they have to be interior.
What's the date of that particular regulation?
I do not know that. I don't know when this was.
The game, that might fall in under the town ordinance.
Right.
or The license.
Nick, are you there? Nick,
I am here. I'm happy to assist if I can. We're a little between solicitors, if you will. I know Attorney Landry was working
Right.
this one, so I might be flying by the seat of my pants, but I'm happy to help if I can, as well as the land use solicitor in the room might be able to lend a hand as well.
so I guess my, and Judith's question is, if gaming devices have to be contained in an interior space, be in an interior space, and the appellant, there wasn't consistent, I didn't get a consistent answer about whether or not, it wasn't a consistent use of, that they'd had gaming devices out on an exterior of the building consistently. We said that they had them, but not consistently. He didn't say, I don't know if he didn't use the word consistently, but that they had them in the past outside. And so is that an abandoned use? That's not is that not grandfathered if it wasn't consistent? I'm having a hiccup on the fact that the carousel is outside. I guess
Yeah,
that's-
I mean, I'm not sure if it makes all the difference. From the little that I've heard about this anecdotally, it was a determination as to what definition this thing fits better. Is it a game? Is it a ride? I think that should be the focus of the board in making that initial determination, which may resolve this one way or the other.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm not an expert on these kinds of things, but the appellant's attorney testified that in the industry, it's called a coin-operated kiddie ride.
Mhm.
And so if our ordinance wants to prohibit those, that's what it should
Yep.
say, if that's the industry terminology, rather than amusement ride.
I'm in the same way that it's not an amusement ride. It is a coin-operated game that is plugged in by an electric outlet for the amusement of the user, which is by our definition of the zoning board of gaming device. It's for the amusement of the user that is putting in the coin, which is plugged in by an electric cord, an outlet.
The other item is that you need a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Commission, which they don't have. I mean, it's part of this, part of the notice of violation.
I have a question about that, right?
Yep.
So let's say we grant them approval and they go to the HDC and the HDC says, no, we don't think it's appropriate. Then they appeal it and then it comes right back to us, right?
I don't, Nick, is that that's what would happen, correct? Or, right? If it would just come right back to us.
In the bizarro world, we often find ourselves in. Yes, I think so.
So I think like, I thought about this long and hard. I think the appeal to the HDC is kind of mute because
It's gonna come right
it's
back.
going to
to
come
us.
right back to us anyway. And we're going to say it's not appropriate. I mean, we just.
Well, that's a different hearing, isn't it? Or maybe it's not because it is in the notice of violation.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's kind of, but is we have to act in almost a judiciary capacity. I think that's kind of, I don't know, it might be a moot point or not. Depends how everyone else feels, but if it's gonna come right back to us,
Right.
you know.
The other trouble I'm having with it is that, if a neighbor or two neighbors had complained due to noise, because another part of the prohibitions in the ordinance say that anything that's noxious or,
Right.
I can't remember the exact terminology, but if the complaint were coming from neighbors, it would have more sway with me, but this is coming essentially from the town.
Well, the notice of violation is brought on by by complaints, correct? But you said that there was more than one complaint. Not the town's complaint, it was,
Okay.
Well, it was, I think it was a town councilman who
Right.
made the complaint. So is he doing it in his?
this is one.
Yeah.
Were there more than one? Oh, I thought there were more,
And
there was
who
more
made
than
the
one.
complaint?
This was the only one written.
Yeah.
There were verbal
Okay, but
ones.
It's
The
like-
only one that,
was he doing it in his market manual?
he was doing it as a citizen,
as a citizen, so it wasn't,
not as a town council member. no.
Okay,
But he also doesn't live anywhere near the venue, and so I
Right.
don't see that he has standing to make that
Right.
complaint.
hmm. He probably doesn't have standing.
Mhm.
He probably doesn't have standing. That's a good point.
In the application as well, the applicant stated that an HDC application would be pursued if the appeal was successful.
That's pretty good.
I guess if they're appealing that it is not an amusement ride. Is that correct?
I-
So,
That's my opinion.
based simply on that, I personally don't think it's an amusement ride based on it. The town's lack of definition of an amusement ride, and the only other definition I could find is something based on safety in Rhode Island statute. So, maybe we just narrow this down and our decision is whether it's an amusement ride or not. And once we determine it's not an amusement ride, then it goes back to the town or to Aldo's to say whether they're going to apply for a gaming device. And then the town council can decide whether they're going to grant a license for that.
Right, so
Which they have already done once before.
Right, and then the
Still
last
haven't
time they
sent
just
it to
kicked the can.
Yes.
we hit, so we have to deal with the HGC aspect of it because it's part of the violation. Yeah,
So
because
Kate,
it says you're hereby notified that you're in violation of zoning section 317 historic overlay, which incorporates by reference the town of New Shoreham's historic district zoning ordinance. As you've installed an amusement ride with the required without the required certificate of appropriateness. So can we uphold the appeal? It's upholding the appeal, correct? I always get that confused. Nick, can we uphold the appeal and send them to HDC?
So you're analyzing a decision made by our zoning official. So upholding the zoning official would be agreeing that it is an amusement ride.
Right,
Overturning the zoning official would be saying that it's your decision that this thing better fits the definition of a game. So you're either going to uphold the zoning official
or
and
overturn.
correct, and agreeing with her
Right.
notice of violation or overturn that notice of violation.
Right. Right. I mean, clearly they didn't get the certificate of appropriateness. We know that. So that is, I agree with the notice, uphold the notice of violation. I would agree that, but I disagree that it is an amusement park ride, amusement ride. So an agree and disagree, a two-part decision.
Well, I guess, but the decision of the HTC was that you're in violation because it's an amusement ride. If we don't think it's an amusement ride, then that shouldn't stand, right? So we can't agree with that because we don't agree that it's an amusement ride.
I agree with that analysis.
Okay.
Did HDC ever hear this? No.
But it's a layered argument. The argument
Right.
rests on that it's amusement park,
Right,
amusement ride, and then, so if we say it's not an amusement ride, it cuts out the entire argument by going to HDC. Then we have another notice of violation for HDC because it's a gaming device, right?
I mean, I don't think that we should be forcing them to fit either amusement ride or gaming device, because frankly, I think it's neither. And what the violation is based on is that it's an amusement ride. So if we say it's not an amusement ride under the definition in the ordinance,
That's
we're
it.
not. Yeah, if they want to, I don't know. But I don't think we should be saying it's one or the other.
It's not an amusement ride. All right, who wants to draft it?
I'll draft it.
All right, good girl. Okay, all right. The second decision of the evening, I am recused of on. It's Brian Curtis, trustee, plat 3, lot 9, fire number 710 Cornick Road. An application for a variance from sections 113C and 306C to rebuild and expand a dimensionally non-conforming single-family dwelling.
Well, I'll start this off, I think, because it is on, yep. So I think we discussed this a bit last time, and I think should I just read my motion? Is that
Yeah.
probably the best? So I'm going to make a motion to approve this variance request based on the following facts. The lot is a non-conforming lot of record comprising 14,269 square feet of gross lot area in a residential A zone. Existing improvements include a foundation with a 1,252 square foot footprint and a shed of 67 square feet. All of the lot area is developable. The lot 92 plat 3 is part of an existing subdivision, existing long-standing subdivision. A dilapidated house existed on the foundation until recently, when the application demolished it in anticipation of building a new house on the same footprint. The applicant wishes to construct a 2-story home with 2 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, and 2 half bathrooms. On the proposed home will have a 1,163 square foot footprint and 1,656 square feet of above grade living area on 2 floors. The proposed structure's coverage is 8.15%. Other structures are 0.47%. That's the shed. The maximum lot building coverage is 8.62%. As a substandard lot, this lot is allowed 5% building coverage under section 113E2. Relief from the lot coverage standards is requested by the applicant. With respect to setbacks, after the application of reduced setbacks permitted under section 113E2, construction requires 18.5 feet of relief setback on the east side of the lot and 4 feet of relief setback on the south side of the lot. This variance is needed to maintain the house on the existing foundation. All other setback minimums have been met. The board grants this variance based on the following factors. The hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land and structure, and not to the general characteristics of the surrounding area, and is not due to the physical or economic disability of the applicant. The unique characteristics of the subject lot are twofold. The lot is part of a long-standing subdivision of substandard lots on which a house has existed since shortly after the establishment of the subdivision. The existing structure on the lot, i.e. the foundation, has been in place since shortly after the creation of the subdivision. The hardship sought to be avoided is not the result of any prior action by the applicant and does not result primarily from the desire of the applicant to realize greater financial gain. The applicant is attempting to recreate the house that existed on the lot and on the foundation prior to it falling in disrepair. In fact, the applicant took all reasonable measures to save the house that existed on the lot for decades, but professional engineers recommended against that approach. The applicant did not proceed with the demolition of the existing house based on, the applicant, I'm sorry, did proceed with the demolition of the existing house based on unofficial communication with town officials, but the board does not consider any unofficial communication between the applicant and the town officials as relevant to this decision. The granting of the requested variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance. The variance will allow this lot to return to its long-standing general character, consistent with the other houses in the subdivision. This avoids the approaches that might change the general character of the surrounding area. For example, building a taller house than the one proposed. 4, the variance granted is the least relief necessary to remove the hardship to the applicant. The applicant is constricted to the existing structure on the lot, that is the foundation. The board is not granting any variance beyond that which is required to build the house on the existing foundation. This decision is subject to the following stipulations. The single-family dwelling must be built in strict conformance with the site plan and architectural plan presented, particularly as it applies to the height of the house, but also to the floor plan.
I'll second that motion. Would anyone like to comment? Open for discussion.
Mark, could I ask you to just reread, it was probably point number 2 or 3 as you started through concerning, the applicant wishes to
Yeah,
build a new house on
The existing foundation.
Yes, I just wanted to hear that.
Excuse me. The applicant is attempting to recreate the house that existed on the lot and on the foundation prior to it falling into disrepair.
Is there not, that's certainly true. Is there not another variance though that's being applied for having to do with, increasing the, ceiling heights on the second floor from what the original house was?
I don't,
See, I guess what I'm thinking is that, they wouldn't even, honestly, wouldn't need to be here if they were substantially renovating, substantially reconstructing the original house. To me, the only significant reason they're here is because they are expanding the non-conforming, the area of floor plan that's devoted to the non-conforming use. Non-conforming by dimension, excuse me. They're increasing the amount of space that is in the non-conforming area. I had another think about the house falling down. You remember at the last meeting, I was like, wait a minute, there's no house on this lot, so it can't be that we can rebuild on the existing foundation. But I see that it fell down by accident. And it was really an accident of attempting to reconstruct. So I'm on board that this is a reconstruction in the same, in the same location. So they really don't need lot line variances. They don't need square footage variances, but they do need a variance for increasing the amount of floor area in the non-conforming area.
and do you have a problem with that?
No, I don't.
No, nor do I.
It's just that it
Yeah.
is a variance that they applied for and that we have to specifically grant.
I think, so are you saying there's something in the motion that needs to be modified?
To address that specific aspect of the variance that they requested.
You can modify your motion. You can amend your motion to eliminate or add.
I will amend the motion to say that the applicant is attempting to build a house on the existing foundation that will add a second floor to the house.
Which second floor increases the floor area devoted to the, I'm sorry, I can't think of the exact words. It says it right in the section in the ordinance on non-conforming by dimension.
Yeah, I don't have those exact numbers, so
Well, I think, I'm looking at the planning board decision, and it does compare. So I think, let's see, can you help me interpret that? That,
See it? It's not footprint, it's living floor area.
living floor areas now, 3,089 square feet.
Wrong house.
Row house?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think,
Oh, okay.
this did not go to plan.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so I'm looking at the wrong
Two.
one. It's the current.
So could you just put some language in there under the 113?
That's what I'm looking for. Do you have the ordinance with you?
Non-conformance ordinance right here.
Oh, good. Read the section on increasing the floor area.
You know, where in the section it is.
It's under the non-conforming by dimension. Okay, repairs and alterations. The building devoted to, no, it's not common use. Change of use, abandonment, no. Okay, non-conforming buildings. That's C1. A structure which is non-conforming with respect to the dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance may not be expanded, enlarged, or increased unless such expanded or enlarged portions complies with the dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance. Then where is it, Jen? I just read it earlier today because I was stuck in my head.
What part are you looking for now?
Ah, here it is. A building devoted to a non-conforming use may be repaired, maintained, or improved, provided the number of square feet of floor area devoted to the non-conforming use. So that's a use
that's
thing.
a
That's
use.
not, yeah, that's
Yeah.
not it.
Under C.
That's
because
not
the
it.
C Addresses the
Down here. at the-
non-conforming by location for the dimensional standards.
So we're not looking at floor area as being,
You are,
Thanks.
because they're expanding it. The entire structure is in the setback. So
Right.
They're expanding it on the second floor. That's why they needed the 113 C1.
okay. Yeah, I thought there was actual language having to do with floor area being considered an expansion. Because, you know, we see a lot of applications where a dormer is being put in on the second floor. And so you would think, well, it doesn't increase the footprint, it doesn't increase the, the floor area, but it does because it's increasing the usable floor area.
Right, because that portion of it has to be in the conforming area. And it isn't.
Right. And if the dormer is because you've got slanty ceilings and your knee wall is only, 3 feet high, that's not usable floor area. When you put the dormer in, now it's usable floor area.
Okay,
And the
so,
same concept applies here. They have a second floor in the original structure. but it doesn't have usable floor area.
So
So
it's
there-
going to go to 1,656 square feet of living area, up from 1,163. That's the footprint area. But it was, I'm looking for what it was to start with. Structure. You don't think,
That's a good way, though, I think, to describe for what Mark's writing is the increase in living square footage from the existing house to the
To-
new one.
to the
That
new one.
captures it. It doesn't matter that it's on the second floor or the.
right,
Or you can just, I mean, if you're making a stipulation that's strict conformance with the plans, you're ensuring that it's built according to the plans that you reviewed, which he has in his motion. You could probably just leave that part of it out.
But have they not applied for a variance under?
They did
Under
apply.
C1?
They did.
So then I think we need to have a sentence that says that that variance is granted, that specific variance is granted.
You could take the language out of 113C1, is that the one that you're reading?
Mhm.
And just add that.
306C 113. So it's down here, this one. You want
So
to,
we're granting a variance to that requirement.
right. You want to add this to your motion? It's C1 would be. It's the very last paragraph.
Okay, I'm going to amend the motion. To say that
Expansion of the second floor.
Yeah, yeah.
Increases.
the applicant is attempting to build a house that had existed on the lot and on the foundation prior to its falling into disrepair.
They further seek to.
They further seek to expand the building that was there to include a second story on a non-conforming structure up to a 1,656 square foot living area total. Does that work?
Okay, I'll second the amended motion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Yeah, Flower and Spade. Oh, that was the Flower and Spade. Was the,
Yes.
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
who was I the chair?
Yes.
For flowering space.
All right, so our next one is a discussion about Flowering Spade LLC, Plot 2, Lot 32-2 on Corn Neck Road. Application for a special use permit under Section 406 to construct a single-family dwelling, accessory structure to be used as a game room and storage, and an accessory structure to be used for storage and fitness studio. The single-family dwelling exceeds the limits set forth in Section 306E. Planning Board conditional approval for an administrative subdivision of lots 32-1 and 32-2. If I remember correctly, our issue was the,
Building plane versus building wall.
right,
Yes.
and their argument, their contention was that it had been broken, so it was not one long. But you had issues with that, so why don't you leave?
I
off,
did,
Robin?
actually, you want to know what? I would like to ask Nick, because one of the things that we did was we talked about looking to see if Nick and Jen could find any other cases about that or give us any further explanation on the building plane versus the building wall on that?
Sure, happy to help. And I've, since our last meeting a month ago or so, whenever it was, I've worked with Jen in looking at our ordinances, and this is kind of a nuanced issue. This is as far as we're aware, the first time this particular issue has come up. I've also worked closely with applicants' counsel to figure out the positions of each side and a potential solution here. So I'll just kind of go through it, just so we're all on the same sheet of music. So a building plane, as we know, in excess of 75 feet is prohibited. So that's your hard stop. 75 feet of a building plane is the hard stop where you can't exceed that. Our ordinances define building plane as that portion of the building facade aligned in the same general plane. Now, you can have breaks in your building plane. It requires an angle of over 45 degrees and a distance or a setback, if you will, of 16 feet. Here we're dealing with 90-degree angles, so the angles in the structure are greater than 45 degrees. The definition also refers the reader and here the board to Appendix I, which gives you a few illustrations of what the definition means as to what a building plane means. Last meeting, zoning board member raised the issue of the building plane at the front of the building. And if the best illustration I can find of it, or what resonates with me most, is the floor plan of the residence. And if you look with reference to the floor plan, from the distance of guest bed 1, the outside wall of guest bed 1, to the inside wall, or the left wall as you look at it, of the den, we have arguably a building plane greater than 75 feet. If that is in fact a building plane from the left of guest bed 1, or the outside of the building of guest bed 1, to the left wall of the den, it's about 77, 78 feet. So just over that threshold. The applicant, through their attorney, and this was raised, so they were somewhat at the last meeting, so they were somewhat caught on the spot, has a certain interpretation of this. They point to certain notes in the appendix to suggest that there is a sufficient break here and that they're not over their limit. I'm just looking at my notes here just to make sure I get everything for you folks. What is key, and I think will be helpful to the board, if you are to find, by applying the definition to the plans that are in front of you, that the building plane exceeds 75 feet, the applicant is willing, as a concession to the board and to continue to move this project forward, to make a minor change to their plans. Again, we're talking about a 2-foot difference between, and again, assuming this is a building plane in excess of 75 feet, a 2-foot difference between in excess of it and under that threshold. The applicant, buying through their attorney, represents that they would make a minor modification to their plans to bring the structure under that threshold. If that's the direction we want to go, I can suggest some language there for the board to impose as a condition on the project moving forward, such that the applicant wouldn't have to come back before you. This would be a minor change. It's, in my opinion, not material in nature. So the first question before you folks is to decide whether or not the distance between the den and guest bedroom 1 constitutes a building plane under the ordinance. And that's a lot of talking for what seemed to be a simple question, but and it's nuanced, it's complicated. So I'm happy to assist in any way if we want to talk this through.
Yeah,
And there's only a distance of 8 feet, 1 inch between the corner of the kitchen and the guest bed on the right-hand side.
I don't see it, sorry.
Uh,
I just,
zoom in
I
for you.
don't understand.
So,
Nick,
so by,
yeah.
by our zoning ordinance appendix I, this distance here from the right-hand side corner of the guest bed 1 to the kitchen should be a minimum of 16 feet. And on the plan, it shows it's 8 feet 1 inch.
Now I
So
understand.
it does not meet the 16-foot threshold
To make it.
to make that building plane have a break.
That would be an interruption.
Right, there is on the right-hand side where the den is, there is a break because it is the 16 feet. See from here
But
to here?
that doesn't help.
No, because
it's
you're
the
measuring the plane from the left-hand side of the guest bedroom to the left-hand side of the den, which gives it feet of 77 feet, 4 7/8 of an inch. So it would be 2 feet longer than appendix I.
It's
So
2 feet
what-
longer right now.
Yes,
But if we used the suggested language to impose the 75 feet, to reduce it by the 2 or 3 feet or whatever it is, do you have any issues other than the building plane with this application? I didn't. It was the building plane that got us stuck. Do you want?
I don't.
Okay, so how about you, Robbie?
I do not have any other issues, but I don't think I would be comfortable in a decision going forward just by saying to reduce the building plane to 75 feet.
Well, we could get the language from, in writing, we can take a look at the language. And one of us can write a decision, incorporate that language, and then we can discuss it, obviously we make a motion and then discuss it. So that might be a way to keep this moving here.
I think your only other option would be to reopen the hearing and have them submit revised plans.
So what was their argument in favor of, they said they were complying and that it was under the limit. And now that thank you very much for showing me
Yeah.
what the problem was.
Mhm.
Why are they saying it's okay when it clearly says it has to be 16 feet?
I can't
I
remember.
believe that they said something to do with the dormers and the break,
The roof,
the roof line, yes. And that was their interpretation.
I mean, I get, that's another way to go is to look at whether we think they made a reasonable interpretation. And if there is any ambiguity, I thought there was supposed to be ambiguity between the diagrams in Appendix I and the words in the section that
So
describes.
based on how this gable changes here to more flat roof.
Yes.
So this is where, oops, too much. From here to here is your
Yes.
75 feet or 77 feet. They said that they fell within that because of the different roof.
The change in
lines.
the roof lines,
Yes.
so.
That doesn't address that in the definition. of the roof.
No, it does not.
It's clear that
So, where do we want to go with this? Do we want to, try to go ahead and do a decision and incorporate language that, must include amended, building plans and, the restrictions? Or do we want to reopen the hearing and ask them to come back with revised plans?
you've put stipulations like that in other decisions.
Other things, yeah, so I have no problem.
Staged by a professional land surveyor, so it's
Yeah.
clear that it conforms to the revised plans.
I have no problem with making it the stipulations, going ahead and doing a decision, but putting stipulations in.
And my suggestion for the language for the stipulation, and I only had one question, and if Jen, maybe you can help me. I wasn't able to find a key on any of the site plans. The outside wall of guest bedroom 1, what direction is that? Is that the western side of the property, or what direction is that?
I don't have it in front of me right now.
Robbie has it up.
Yeah, give me a second, Nick.
Sure.
There's a-
No, I think it's
That's what I'm looking
south.
Sorry, it's on the southwest side.
Southwest. All right, so the language I would suggest to the board, you're free to amend it, of course, is that there's a stipulate or a condition that the applicant modify the plans such that the building plane between the southwest wall of guest bedroom 1 and the southwest wall of the den measures no more than 75 feet.
That,
Okay. Okay.
Nick,
Uh,
they're gonna write something, for the next meeting, so we'll run it by you.
Sure.
Address
Sure.
it.
All right. Is everybody comfortable with this approach?
that language, I think, covers it, yes.
Robbie, are you?
Work with that.
Okay, all right. So who's gonna write the decision? Oh,
I mean, I'll draft it and then I'll work with Robbie.
Sure.
Can I send it to you to make sure?
Yeah, I'll work with you.
Okay, great.
We don't usually do that, but,
that
Then
against
I'll
the
draft
rules?
it.
why would it be against the rules?
It's only two.
right, it's only two. Why don't you send it to me and I could circulate it?
Okay.
So that you're not.
Program should.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience. The first application of the evening is the Town of New Shoreham, Plat 8, Lot 218, High Street. Application for a variance from Article 3, Section 113C for construction on the Thomas property. Demolish and rebuild the existing structure, the Thomas House, for 2 accessory dwelling units, construction of a new structure for 2 accessory dwelling units, and zoning ordinance, section 513, town employee accessory dwelling units.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Oh, you're waiting.
I'm waiting for the file. Okay. Has everybody had a chance to look through this? Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? It's just just pretty straightforward what they've applied for. Did everybody get a chance to go through it? Anybody have any questions? Making sure I'm not missing something. Oh. That one's- That's really heavy.
You don't have a checklist.
I don't have a checklist. I'm just making sure that we have, I didn't see anything that looked,
You do have 2 sets of plans for the Thomas. I labeled them, the Thomas in the house I put on.
Yep.
One has the porch, one does not.
it's existing. For the, you mean for the rear building or for the front?
We're only talking about the front
We're
building
only talking about the front right now.
at all.
Well, then what is the thing, what is the building in the back?
It's a permitted structure. It's not. we're
You
no-
don't
we
have to,
need
you
a
don't need
variance.
it. Got it, okay. So there is a porch on the front? What do you say? I'm not seeing what you're talking about.
Porch roof.
Which is which?
They're the same, it's the same building. I'll explain it.
Okay. Well, you don't, I mean, if,
No, I'm happy.
okay.
That's why I'm here. So if I could,
Well, you're not, this isn't your hearing, so you're just,
why isn't it my hearing?
I'm sorry. You're an application.
Oh, this is just accepting the
This
variance.
application, yeah,
Oh,
so
I'm
you don't
sorry.
have to go, you don't have to. get
But
into-
let me,
But be prepared to,
I am. So, but I can help you get through it real
we
quick.
can go through, get to that when we get to the actual hearing. You can
Okay.
just be prepared to address why there's.
All right.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah. Although it'd be helpful to know why we have two
Okay.
drawings now.
Okay, go ahead if you want to know. now.
So the Thomas House that's currently across from the school is the one in question. There's another building that is totally conforming for the site and within the planning for the subdivision for the 513s. The existing Thomas House that you see today is in the setback, making it non-conforming. Therefore, anything we do to it that might make it bigger or change the skin, as it were, would increase the nonconformity. What we are proposing is to remove a bump out on the back and remove some square footage and put one room in the center under the ridge, which would raise the roof 7 feet. Right now, it's a 1-story building. We're going to a 1.5-story building. So that's nonconformity 1. 2 is we think the facade without the porch roof is pretty plain. And we would we would build a porch roof that would just break up the facade of the building. It's not usable space. So that's the two nonconformities.
So can I just interrupt? Are you
Sorry.
just showing it both ways, just so that if we were uncomfortable with the porch, this
yes,
is what it would look like?
yes.
Okay, that's all we need to know. Okay,
Good.
great. Okay, any other questions? All right, we will schedule you then for the May 24th meeting. I am not going to be here, so if there's a quorum issue for that, we need to. No. Okay, all right. I'll make a motion to schedule up to May 24th. All in favor? Aye. Great. See you
Thank
then.
you.
Okay, the public hearings this evening. The first public hearing is the Town of New Shoreham, Plat 3, Lot 127, Mansion Road, application by the town manager for a special use permit under Section 306E for a government facility for installation of public restrooms at Mansion Beach. Yes, everybody remember the microphones, and if you could.
Sally, we're gonna start the hearings.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I have that,
Is someone going to swear him in?
Karen?
During the course of this hearing,
I do.
please state your name.
Tom Greasy.
Okay.
Good. So before you is an application for a totally off-grid, self-contained bathroom, male and female bathroom with a small utility space in between. It is 8 feet wide, 18 feet long, and 17 feet high. Sorry, 14 feet high. The DEM and CRMC have already approved the building. And as you see in your file, we have a positive reference
Advised letter.
from Conservation Commission and Planning Commission. And I have a description of the facility here that I'm happy to go over with you if you want some more information on how the building works. But as I say, it's completely off the grid. There's the basement, the foundation of the building is actually 2 water tanks, one for water, flushing water, and another for the septage. And above, at ground level and above, and it's 17 feet above mean high tide. We moved it uphill a little bit on the CRMC's request. I inherited this project when I first came aboard in the town, and I've asked Mike Shea to come with me here, who has been in this project from the onset. So any questions that I can't answer, I would like to call
Okay.
upon Mike. The plan is that the town would deliver non-potable water to the facility for the purpose of washing hands and flushing. The drainage from the sink goes into that flushing water tank. And that's just used for flushing the water. There will be signage that says the water is not for drinking. The sink will only run for 10 seconds. And it's a really small sink bowl. So unless we have 2 concerns. One is some small kid getting his head in there and trying to drink it. And the other is people washing their feet, which is apparently a problem in the visitors bathroom.
It's a big problem.
Right. So we've done everything we can to discourage both those things. Dylan Chase is on board to pump the thing monthly. If it in the very highest peak of the season, it would maybe need twice a month. But we have an alarm system that talks to our cell phones that will tell us when the sewer tank is at 60%, and then everything stops. So we would respond immediately and pump it. But the rate of pumping it out is going to be determined upon the usage. And right now that's planned on monthly.
Okay.
But
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second.
please,
You probably want to submit some items to be, as exhibits to be marked. I'm going to suggest maybe
well,
the
isn't-
site, your plans. They're in our file, but they're not exhibits to the hearing. So what you have, this is, what is this?
okay.
I'm gonna walk, I can't tell you what it is. so-
Okay, but yeah, I wasn't given those instructions, but
Okay,
I
that's
certainly
okay.
can do it.
Well, this is no different than what I would do to suggest to anybody else.
No, I
who's
get
having a
it.
hearing.
But someone probably should have told me that.
Well, this is not the place to talk about that. So,
All right, I will take all the contents of the file and mark them as exhibits.
not all, but I'll walk you through. So the first exhibit will be the Town of New Shore restroom facilities, Mansion Beach restroom facilities by James Jeremiah and Associates. And it is a site plan. 1, 2. And the holding tank detail.
Yep.
3. And floor plans and I guess that's an elevation,
Yep, sections and elevations.
5 pages. Exhibit 1.
That's the DEM OWTS approval.
Okay, this is the, exhibit 2 would be the OWTS approval from the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management.
Got lots of.
Would you like to mark the planning and conservation?
Sure,
Okay.
thank you.
3 would be a letter advisory to the zoning board of review, favorable advisory from the planning board.
Jen, do they have the one from conservation in the file?
4 would be a favorable advisory from the New Shore Conservation Commission. And then you have the assent, right? 6 would be the 5 would be the assent from CRMC.
Do you know if whether or not that assent was recorded?
I don't know.
Recorded in the town. or
yes.
recorded at CRMC.
Yes, generally that, and I believe that one does on page 2 or 3, require that it be recorded on the land evidence records.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know how many people read it, but it's in almost all of them, where you record it in the land evidence records or it's null and void.
Yes, page 3, general stipulations, subsection A.
I think we're good with exhibits.
That's the exhibits. Good.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what do we do with the abutters letter? Is that,
I got to that at the end.
Wait, do you want to mark, is this, do you want to mark any of the plans?
Are they what we just,
No, Jim's,
It's the same
Okay.
information, but it's
yeah, I would-
just bigger.
okay, we're gonna mark the restroom building, New Shoreham, mansion property, New Shoreham, Rhode Island, 02807. Structural design by Blazer Industries, is that right? Date 6/25, I'm guessing this is 2022. Okay. So we've covered the pump out, the way it's pumping out. You've moved it west, is that?
No,
correct?
it's cited where CRMC wanted, it, so all the plans show where it's going.
Okay.
If you're
So
familiar.
it hasn't changed from
No,
it's the same location.
plans reflect the final location. If those of you that know Mansion Beach, if you haven't figured out where it is, it's just beyond where the drop off is, where the bike racks are, on the right, a little bit south of where the porta potties were the last couple of years. No, it stays there year round, but it's only open seasonally. It's similar in size and construction to the broadband building behind the fire department or the Ball O'Brien bathrooms. The tanks are concrete and they sit in the ground and the building sits on top of them. So the tanks are the foundation. It sits down, at the base floor is elevation 17. And the ground around there is, only a little bit more. So it's, we'll have to dig a little bit for the foundation and then infill to the floor. No electricity. It's operated, off solar panels and batteries. And it communicates by cell to the town.
And who gets those communications?
It'll be Mike and myself and Dylan. In the sewer department. No? But I can tell you, it's better than what we have been doing, which is
Oh.
managing porta potties and cleaning up after people couldn't hold it any longer. So it's gonna be better for everybody. The use is interesting in that at Ball O'Brien, the bathrooms there were associated with the recreational use. While Mansion Beach is a recreational area, there's no facility that supports that. So there is a use called governmental use, similar to this building, that is for the purpose of the town. And we applied under that use as the most fitting.
Right.
I think that-
Knowing how busy it gets down there at the, at the end of the day, as everybody is leaving at once, this, I'm imagining something, maybe it's never gonna happen, but I'm not gonna see families stopping to drop kids off who desperately have to go and then jamming the traffic up behind them because there's not enough room.
There is,
for cars to pass.
lately, last couple of seasons, there has been no parking available there in 1 or 2 in the afternoon. By 3 to 4, people start trickling away. 5 and 6, it's pretty empty. Frankly, I don't go to the beach much, but that's what my wife tells me.
I mean,
But-
people park
but this is by those-
illegally all along there.
Yeah, but this is by those 4 spots at the end of the circle, if you imagine it. So as you come around, you go past the drop off, which is the entrance to the beach, and then there's 4 parking spots on the left.
But people park illegally on both sides of that access.
That's a different subject. I mean, we
Yeah,
have,
no, I
pla-
realize you can't
we have
control
planned
that.
parking and I can't tell you what people will do. And short of putting a cop there and having somebody tell you that their kid just really has to go, we haven't really addressed what happens if there's a logjam at that bathroom.
I mean, people being people, you know?
Right. What we did was put this in the bushes down low. There's trees all around it, and it's not really going to be very visible from anywhere but people driving right by. And that was intentional. So as not to attract anybody going up the neck and needing to use a bathroom pulling into Mansion
No.
Beach. So I understand what you're saying. If people do this in an orderly manner, it'll be fine. I can't
Because
really
anyway,
discuss that.
Can really,
Yes. Yes. It'll be open from 6 AM to 10 PM. Right now, those are the hours. If we find that the partiers on the beach are using it, we'll close it earlier probably. And it's clean first thing in the morning, just as all the town bathrooms are. No, the cleaners open up the visitor center now and the interstate lot and the Ball O'Brien bathrooms, and the cleaners are in there first in the morning. They unlock it and clean it and then open it to the public.
Into the microphone, please.
Just out of curiosity, what's the budget for this?
The box was about 175, and that's what's budgeted. It's been in the budget for 2 or 3 years now, and the town crew and other people are just doing a little bit of site planning or site prep for that, so there's not much else.
okay. Did you want Mike to speak?
Would Mike like to speak?
You can't, okay. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? No. Okay. We do have some letters from letters.
I'm only aware of one.
Oh, we have a letter from Michael Shea.
Yep.
About how one likes to use a porta potty. That's for planning board, but it was in my file. Anyway, it's to the planning board. And then there's the letter. Yeah, Carleen Newman. The final,
Oh, that was from you. That's from Tom.
okay,
That was your correspondence for the Department of Health.
Yes.
I added that to. the-
Okay, there was a question of whether it was potable water. It is not potable water, so Department of Health has no bearing.
and then we had to have one letter from an abutter.
Right.
To whom may concern, we are writing to express our concerns in regards to the proposed placement of public restrooms in between Mansion Beach parking lot, exit road, and the emergency vehicles path. We believe that the site is too close to the pond located directly across and downhill from the entrance to the restrooms. We recommend that the location be moved to the cleared site inside the loop of the parking area. We believe that this will protect the wildlife and preserve the habitat and fragile ecosystems surrounding the pond. We appreciate your consideration. Lavinia McCall and Alexander Grinley, or at 1781 Mansion Road. CRMC was okay with the location
TEM as well.
and DM. And then we do have the planning board, favorable advisory, and the conservation favorable advisory. So no other questions? This is a public hearing. If there's anybody with questions in the audience or comment? I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. before you go on to the next hearing, you might want to consider doing the Aldo's decision before the May meeting. If you're going to be away, you only have 4 that would be available. Judith, Mark, Rob, and Steve. I know that you can.
I've got to check my calendar about
Okay.
the May 20.
May 24th is the next
24th.
meeting.
That may be a double problem.
You want us to do it on the fly?
I'm just pointing it out. Because
Yes, I got you.
I will not.
Would you be okay with me writing something on the fly? We know we're, we could, if we did the, that is the Aldo's decision, it's just an appeal decision is just we overturn the decision or knows a violation, following findings of fact.
So is the question whether or not.
Yeah, actually, can we do it on the fly? Yeah, I mean, we sometimes, we have done that in the past, we try not to do that, but for quorum issues going, it can sometimes, when it's not a lengthy decision.
Yes, I agree. You can absolutely-
Okay,
do I do that at the end?
we'll do that at the end.
And Judith, will you be at the May meeting?
My plan says I will be, but it's dicey. If I don't make the vote, I won't be
Okay.
there. I have an
Here's
appointment in the afternoon.
So it's only really the Aldo's because you have, Clarence. See, you're out, so.
It's my intention to be here, but
And the law changed, so,
Right.
the law on quorum changed effective January 1, 2023. So you're only required to have 4 seated to have a quorum.
The second public hearing of the evening, Fab 5 LLC, Plat 3, Lot 86-1, fire number 1181, Corn Neck Road, application for a special use permit under sections 306 and 406 to demolish an existing single-family dwelling and rebuild a single-family dwelling and accessory structure. They have requested a continuance until May. I will make a motion to continue they're not gonna be ready. Continue them to June.
it would be June 28th.
To the June 28th meeting.
Second.
Yep.
Just to comment on that one. If they could provide us with dimensions on the south elevation of the wing, which is the northeast corner on the primary residence.
I'm actually recused on this, but I can schedule it. Okay, so it's June 28th. Okay, that brings us to a motion made and seconded. All in favor? The third hearing of the evening is Christopher J. Goria, Plat 19, Lot 37, fire number 919 Champlin Road. Application for a special use permit under Article 3, Section 306E, Article 4, Sections 401 and 403 for a secondary dwelling development. All existing structures will be raised.
Good evening, Joseph.
Hi, Joe.
Attorney from Westerly, representing Victor Correa.
Is the microphone, is the green light on?
Green light's on.
Okay, you're gonna have to talk into it because Sally has to maybe switch to this one's up higher.
But I have my witnesses too. She's like,
Right, maybe raise that so that it's closer,
Can you
you
raise?
don't want me raising it.
No.
then switch,
I'll move.
put your witness over there. That
But
would-
yeah. You already said.
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
The quote, Clint Eastwood, a man leads to those limitations. Anyway, but just, this is sort of a complicated and yet a relatively simple project at the same time. Mr. Goriev owns a 15-acre approximately lot at the end of a long private right of way on the water in this, what was then the southern portion of the Champlin Farm. In 2004, the owner at the time applied for a special use permit under this section, which has been modified to build a second dwelling. There was one that already existed inland that had been Deadeye Dick's home for years. He built one on the water, kept building permits. We're not saying that you are bound by that, but that's as a matter of an explanation as to why the property has been developed the way it has been developed. Brief history of that section of the ordinance. It came into effect first in March of 1989, when the planning board was raising the minimum lot size in the residential A zone from 2 acres to 3 acres. People became concerned about people who would have 5-acre lots who would lose the lot. So it was sort of built in as a way to save those lots. We're not really in that situation. We aren't trying to get a second house on a lot that wouldn't qualify for a subdivision. We've got over 11 acres of developable land to go with that 15 acres of land. The principal change since 2004 in the ordinance that has affected us is the addition of section 403F4, which reads, the two dwellings shall be separated by not more than 50 feet unless the zoning board of review determines the site circumstances require a wider separation in order to achieve consistency with the design intention of the ordinance or for public safety purposes. So you're allowed to have the houses separated. We're asking for the separation because to try to use the existing 2 building locations. We basically have, so another situation on the site that you'll see is that although the site is large and has a lot of developable land, there's an intricate intricate system of wetlands on the property. And right now, the disturbed areas are remote from the wetlands, and any other type of, any other choice of locations would impinge more on the wetland. You'll find that both the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board have recommended approval of the plan as presented. The Conservation Commission simply said, preserve as many trees as possible and do not remove the existing stone walls. Our plan, you'll see a landscape plan, and our location plan accomplishes both those goals. The planning boards made the following finding. The zoning board of review can determine that site circumstances require a wider separation in order to achieve consistency with the design intention of the ordinance or for public safety purposes. And this has been granted previously. Planning board supports granting relief from this standard and agrees that the wider separation supports the design intention and the proposed siting of the structures protects natural and scenic character. Proposed siting is consistent with the existing structures to be demolished in order to take advantage of existing functioning septic fields and avoid locating structures on the highest elevation of the property. In an advisory to the Coastal Resources Management Council reviewing a wetlands edge determination on this property, the Rhode Island Historical Preservation and Heritage Commission also favored the proposed development in the existing locations. It stated, Rhode Island RAHPHC has reviewed the above referenced application for a freshwater wetland edge verification, and we have no objection to the issuance of this permit. However, as the property in question is located near the Great Salt Pond Archaeological District and may be the locus of a Native American archaeological site, it is possible that RIHPHC might recommend an archaeological survey in advance of future development of the property. RIHPHC has previously had no objection to the house construction on the property pursuant to CRMC decisions 2004-03-155 and 2003-05-065. But future development that impacts a greater area might be of concern to us. That is a somewhat lengthy introduction. I'll call my first witness, and that's Kenneth Cole.
Pam, we're gonna ask you to get sworn in.
Good evening. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth during the course of this hearing?
I do.
Could you please state your name?
Ken Cole.
Thank you.
Ken, what's your occupation?
Project manager for Atlas Land Surveying,
And how long have you worked as project manager for Atlas?
since 2007,
And how long have you worked with Atlas?
since 2007.
Were you, was Atlas hired by Mr. Gareyev to do the engineering and surveying work necessary and incidental to his secondary dwelling development on the
Yes.
prop- And have you been the project manager for Atlas surveying assigned to this project?
Yes, I've been the only person for Atlas Land Surveying assigned to this project.
Did your firm prepare plans, including existing condition site plan, proposed condition site plan, and proposed condition detail plans, all dated February 2022?
That's correct.
Are these plans?
Yeah, this is the existing conditions plan that we submitted to CRMC for the wetland edge verification that started the project.
And what's the second plan?
That would be the proposed condition site plan that we issued to Rhode Island DEM and Block Island's Planning Board.
And does that incorporate the wetland verification from CRMC?
Yes, yes, it does.
And what is the third plan?
The third plan was a proposed conditions detail plan that was requested by the town of New Salem.
Does that include grading and drainage notes, sequence and staging of land disturbing activities, accessory dwelling general notes, principal dwelling general notes, roof dry well system detail?
That's correct.
Like to mark the plan.
Applicants one, exhibit one is the existing conditions site plan, proposed conditions site plan, and the proposed conditions detail plan by Atlas Survey.
And we just mentioned briefly that there was a wetlands edge determination by coastal resources.
Yes, there was.
And did that incorporate a recommendation from the Rhode Island Historical Preservation and Heritage Commission?
Yes, it did.
I've got a copy of a letter to Christopher Gareyev, suggesting related to that, dated November 16, 2021, suggesting written minor modifications. Are you familiar with that letter?
Yes.
And did you make the modifications shown on that the CRMC requested?
We did make the modifications they requested.
And they're shown on your plan before the board this evening?
Yes.
And could you turn to the third page, which is a letter to the CRMC from the Rhode Island Historical Preservation Commission dated August 26, 2021. Was that part of the hearing before the CRMC, or the decision before the CRMC?
You said page 3?
The third page of
Yeah,
that,
the CRMC application review sheet?
the page before that.
Oh. Yes, the one to the historical preservation?
Yeah.
Yep,
Can you just read for the board the first two paragraphs of that letter?
sure. RIHPHC has reviewed the above reference application for a freshwater wetland edge verification, and we have no objection to the issuance of this permit. However, as the property in question is located near the Great Salt Pond Archaeological District, and may be the locus of Native American archaeological site, it is possible that the RIHPHC might recommend an archaeological survey in advance of future development of the property. RIHPHC has previously had no objection to house construction on the property, referencing past applications, but future development that impacts a greater area might be of concern to us.
Mark the CRMC Freshwater Wetlands Edge letter dated November 16, 2021, and attached documents applicants to. Could you now, referring to your various site plans, walk the board through the project?
Sure. The site, there's two buildings on the property. One was an unfinished gambrel style house up on the bluff. And there was a foundation remains of a guest building or accessory building down in the hollow. And both sites had septic system designs, designed by others and installed by, I think the installer was Bain or Andy Transu. The Bluff House, the main house that never got lived in, the septic system was installed, conformed, and is in the ground and never saw sewage because no one ever was living in the house. The house in the hollow did have occupancy and the septic system was used. We permitted the new structures that we're proposing to use the systems that are out there, because one is brand new, it's just 20 years old, brand new. The other one saw a little bit of use. The Rhode Island DEM approved those plans. We made slight modifications to the Bluff House to accommodate the new construction that we're proposing, but the building down in the hollow is pretty much as is. We're just gonna replace the tank lids have kind of broken apart, but so we got permitting with the DEM for those septic systems. And we also proposed stormwater retention, basically grabbing all the roof runoff and any impervious surface. We've put together an intricate subsurface storage system so that we can mitigate the water coming off the roof, so we're not, sending it over land or capturing it all.
Is this property already subject to 3 CRMC decisions?
Yes, I was responsible for one of those.
Are you familiar with the 3?
I'm familiar with the 3.
Just to put them in the record, I'd like to ask you to identify the 3 ascents, which are in CRMC number W01759, which is the relocation of the access right of way over the budding Bowden property and partially over this property. Ascent number 2003-0876, which is an as-built installation of a vineyard, which we are not pursuing. And the last is a CRMC Ascent A 2004-03-155, which is to construct a 4-bedroom dwelling and individual sewage disposal system and associated site alterations on the property. That's for the building by the water, is that correct?
Yes,
The building by the water that Norris did, the original building by the water, or right now?
No, this is, we're going back now to 2004.
Okay, I'm just making.
Yeah, this was a 2004 ascent. I'd like to ask,
Okay.
maybe mark these ascents, applicants 3, 4, and 5.
Okay, so we have 3, 4, and 5 Coastal Resources Management Council's assents for various applications on the property.
and
from
I'll just.
Years past.
I was not responsible for any of those 3. I thought Joe was gonna reference the wetland edge verification, so those are not any of my responsibility.
And just to be clear, although we have a wetlands edge verification, which you have taken care of with CRMC, we cannot take this project to CRMC until we get zoning board approval.
That's correct. That would be our next step after approval from you folks.
And before I get it, I may as well, if I could just, I've got a copy of the zoning decision on the special use permit in 2004. I can mark that.
Joe, you need to speak into the mic. I did not hear that. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Also got a copy of the zoning decision from the 2004 special use permit, which I'd like to mark as applicant.
Signed by Judith, because we were here.
We were, indeed. Just the two of us, right?
Signed by Judith.
Okay, zoning decision from 2004, February 23rd. Is applicants exhibit 4, 6.
Ken, if you could now, on this project, we're going to use one existing septic system and build one new WTS, is that correct?
No, both of them are existing. We're gonna make modifications, slight modifications to the septic system that's on the bluff. The lower house, all we're replacing is a building sewer line from the house to the existing tank.
So I've got on-site wastewater treatment system construction permit 21221798 and 22220357.
Yes, yes.
Joe, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to speak into the mic.
Sorry.
Yes, those are the two septic applications we applied for. We filed them separately because they were for separate buildings.
You mark those respectively applicants, 7 and 8, I think.
7, yes, 7 and 8 are the DEM permits for the septic systems. They're two separate septic systems.
And they were also, no increase in bedrooms, same number of bedrooms that the state approved earlier.
And has indeed the changes been, those changes been approved by the state?
Yeah,
I have a map entitled on-site wastewater treatment system alteration design plan, that 1937, dated February 22 by Atlas Surveying. Was this in fact the plan that was approved by DEM?
yes,
Mark the OWTS plan, applicants 8.
9, applicants 9 is the OW, the on-site wastewater treatment system design.
Joe, I have two full-size ones if you want them. No.
We're good.
Now, in the process of your site preparation, did you have some communications with, through the planning board with the town's engineer, Jim Jeremy?
I did. Our original submission, he had some concerns that the stormwater wasn't addressed. And it was, but it was not in the format that he was looking for. So I prepared another sheet that satisfied his request. And all the stormwater information was on the approved septic plan. It just, he wanted to see some more details and notes, specifically articulating that. So
And
we created another
is
sheet.
this plan entitled Stormwater Control Plan AP 19 Lot 37 dated October 2022? The plan that you created in response to Mr. Jeremiah's questions?
Yes,
I'd like to mark the stormwater control plan applicants 9,
10.
10. Will all the utilities to the site be underground?
yeah, most of the utilities are already installed and are underground. There is a well that's at the base of the hill near the Hollow House that's already providing potable water to both buildings. And there is underground electric that also travels up the gravel drive from the bottom of the property to the top. So we'll have to just tap, make a new connection to those, but there are stuff, that infrastructure is already in place.
So by locating the buildings where they're already constructed, you're basically avoiding any unnecessary ground disturbance
Yeah.
to lay new utilities.
Yeah, yes. We took a lot of care in trying to not cut down the tree or do work outside of areas that were already being maintained by the owner. Our limited disturbance is completely in maintained lawn areas, or I think the client has it mowed periodically. I'm not going to say he mows it once a week, but we're not proposing any vegetation removal whatsoever.
Are the soils and subsoils on the site suitable for the buildings, driveway, parking area, and other site improvements which are proposed?
Yeah, I reviewed there were soil evaluations done by others, not by our firm. And I reviewed those documents and they were suitable. They were done in accordance with DEM rules and regulations. And I'm familiar with the people who did them.
I've got here, soil samples done for Ted Grillo by David D. Gardner. Are those the soil evaluations that you reviewed?
Yeah, I think Dave Gardner did some and so did Claire McElderry. Yep, that's one of them.
Mark,
Yeah, the DEM didn't make me do new ones because the septic systems are already installed and they were satisfied that the soils were done and, you know, done and witnessed or to be witnessed by the department. So they were already done. We didn't need to do new ones.
Like that, Mark, site evaluation form, part A, soil profile description, property owner Ted Grillo, soil evaluator David B. Gardner, received by DEM August 30th, 2002, as applicants 11.
11, applicants 11 are the soil evaluations from 2002 for the existing septic systems.
Have you designed the stormwater management plan for the site so that runoff from the developed site will not exceed peak runoff from the site prior to development?
Yes, we've engineered it all so that everything coming off that roof is captured and stored in the ground.
Did you design the sediment control plan as described in the town soil erosion and sediment control ordinance to minimize sedimentation and siltation to existing surface water bodies and wetlands?
Yes, it was one of the plans you just submitted as an exhibit.
There are pretty significant wetlands on this property.
Oh, yeah, there was quite a bit of wetlands going on. They've got a freshwater stream, they have freshwater wetlands, they got a coastal feature bluff. I was busy.
And the proposal is outside of not only the wetlands, but also the associated wetlands buffer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Including for not only the ponds, but the stream.
Yes,
And there's and the location regarding the coastal feature will be in the same location that it currently is.
yeah, the coastal feature we wanted to place the new structure very close in location to the coast as what was there because coastal approved that before. And that was our intent moving forward, was not to move any closer than what was approved back in 2004.
Does your sediment control plan minimize proposed filling, cutting, clearing, or grading and preserve natural vegetation and topography wherever possible?
Yeah, there's not a ton of earthwork shown on our plan, but, you know, we have some challenges with the steep topography that's coming off the east side of the existing building down to my A-series wetlands.
That's the existing building
Yes,
near the ocean.
correct.
And would the problems be greater if you relocated the houses to undeveloped areas of the lot?
Yeah, if we were to further the building away from the coast, the earthwork would get even worse. Would get far more challenging because that's a pretty steep slope there.
Ken, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Really more it's kind of out of interest is there a difference in the existing bluff house from where it was placed originally? The distance of erosion, is there any significant erosion that has changed that location to the water or to the bluff? edge?
Well, one of the first things I did was I did identify the coastal feature and represented it on the plan, and it didn't, and I have prior history with this property for a former owner.
Right,
And so I visited this site probably on 2 other occasions before Mr. Goria purchased the land.
Mhm.
And just out of personal observations, I didn't notice much change in erosion on the bluff there from my prior visit, which was probably back in like 2008 or 9 for previous owner.
And does
It wasn't Grillo either, it was someone else in between.
Does the plan for the construction of the secondary dwelling development consider and protect against degradation of surface and groundwater quality?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the purpose of the underground retention for the stormwater.
I have no further questions for Mr. Cole. I have Magnus Westerkin, an architect. I also have Mark Butler, who is a landscape architect who will present a landscape plan.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Cole? Okay, thank you.
My next question is Magnus Westergren.
Can you raise your hand to be sworn in, please, sir?
Good evening. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth during the course of this hearing?
I do.
Could you please state your name?
Magnus Westergren?
Thank you.
Could you just spell that for the stenographer, please?
Sure. MAGNUSWESTERGREN.
Thank you.
Sally, did you get that?
Yeah, thank you.
Magnus, what's your occupation?
Architect
And how long have you practiced architecture?
for 12 years
And where do you practice?
in New York City primarily, but always also sometimes Block Island.
And you practice fairly often in coastal communities? Is that
Yes. Yes.
Were you engaged by Mr. Gareyev to design a secondary dwelling development on the property we've been discussing this evening?
I was.
And is the development you designed represented on plans entitled map project number 2122 Block Island Bluffs, the Gareyevs, 919 Champlain Road, New Shoreham, Rhode Island?
They are.
Are the plans I just handed you the plans you presented before the board this evening?
Yes.
Um,
What? Joe, can you just tell me which version you're looking at?
Oh,
Pardon me?
Which, just make sure that, because when I'm playing it, well,
It's map project number 2122, Block Island Bluffs, the Gareyevs, 919 Champlain Road, cover sheet and index G00, zoning sheet diagram Z100, zoning diagrams Z105, zoning diagrams accessory Z106. It has the civil plans 1, 2, and 3, which we've already presented.
Yep.
It has landscape plans, which we will present. And
Yep.
it has architectural plans, A00 site plan, location plan, A100 Bluff House cellar floor plan, A101 Bluff House first floor plan, A102 Bluff House second floor plan, A103 Bluff House roof plan, A104 pool floor plan, A120 guest house cellar floor plan, A121 guest house first floor plan, A122 guest house roof plan, A130 barn floor plan, A131 barn loft floor plan, A132 barn roof plan.
can we just get the date?
yeah.
It's dated August 16, 2021. It is the date of the first sheet.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
but the
Some of the
issue
other
for
sheets.
special use was a different date, but that's the same.
But
drawing
it's the
list,
same,
sheet.
okay, just
Yeah.
make sure we're all, 'cause
Yeah.
this file is, you can,
I did. I just
This is-
reviewed and it has the same.
I don't, I'll mark whatever one you want me to mark, but I just want to make sure that as, I want to make sure, I want to mark your copy,
This
but I
one is
just,
not-
okay, that's great.
One,
This,
one of the two changes suggested by the Conservation Commission, was that they proofread these plans and said, how come your building code summary references the 1968 New York City Building Code? And we said, because we messed up. So we
so why
amended
don't
those
you
plans,
submit the exhibit and then we can,
and ours has the correct reference to the Rhode Island plan.
That's a good pickup. Conservation Commission.
they're paying attention.
That's the easiest way
So
to
this
come to it.
is not,
That can
this
be-
is,
That can go. But essentially, other than that, and one small minor change, they're identical plans.
so exhibit 12 are the building plans.
Referring to the plans, however you think useful, Magnus, would you please describe the two dwellings and the accessory buildings which make up this application?
I mean, as you heard from Ken, we're proposing two dwellings that are existing on the two existing dwellings. There's a slight increase in the footprint of the bluff side one. Both buildings are designed to emulate the sort of stone walls and timber construction that's prevalent on Block Island. So they're both dying into the hillside and sort of being partially hidden. There's two accessory structures proposed. One is a garage attached, or not attached, but near the bluff house. And that one is partially submerged by the hillside. And then at the far southwest end of the property, there's a barn that is just for storing, boat equipment and lawn equipment. and
Is that where
similar
the
things.
existing garage is?
There is no
Whereabouts-
existing garage. So the two accessory structures are new proposed accessory structures. The two dwelling units are the ones that are existing on the existing dwelling. units.
Right, but there used to be a garages there. There used to be a two. like-
That may have been
Yeah,
before we.
okay, all right,
dumped on
I
the
just-
property.
There, all right, so there's no garage, okay.
Yeah, it's must have grown over if there was, because I didn't see anything.
Just a quick question. The principal dwelling is now the closer to the bluff,
Yes, ma'am.
and the secondary dwelling development is where I think of the original house.
Yeah, the Deadeye Dick's old
That-
house.
When did,
Deadeye
that-
Dick?
Hmm?
Deadeye Dick's. He owned the property till about 1972.
so, I don't know, I'm just confused because I'm thinking of the location of the principal dwelling as being the
We're-
original little
we're-
cottage
we're-
and not the bluff house.
Right.
We're flip-flopping that. The principal house in this application is by the bluffs. The secondary dwelling is more inland of the
The
two.
original house.
It just doesn't matter that the 2004 decision had it the other way around.
I don't think it matters,
But if I, part of the.
as long as the spatially or dimensionally.
Basically, the 2004 decision is, we put that before you, A, because your rules require that we show you our prior decisions, and B, it explains why the areas that are already disturbed on the property are already disturbed. We're not asking you to rely or be bound at all by the 2004 decision.
The ordinance changed and they were never issued certificate occupancies for those.
They received building permits, but
Sort of not, you're reviewing it under this new ordinance or the secondary dwelling development ordinance.
Right, so the standards that apply to the secondary dwelling didn't exist originally?
It was a different ordinance, substantially different. I think it refers to detached.
the standards really haven't changed. What I've always thought was interesting is that you have a height for a principal use, you have a height limit for an accessory use,
Right,
and those are different. Otherwise, the dimensional standards are essentially the same.
And the 50-foot thing.
The 50-foot thing's a different thing of itself, exclusive of this ordinance. But if you just get to the dimensions, what never became before you that I know of, that I would have liked to have seen come before you, was somebody with two houses 30 feet high, saying they're both principal structures, even though it's called secondary dwelling development. No one ever brought that before you, and we're not bringing that before you because both of our houses are substantially less than 25 feet high. So we're not pushing the envelope, so I don't think it matters which house you call the principal house, which one you call the secondary house. They're both houses.
okay.
Well, I do think actually it is important because if someone down the road different owner was to apply to expand, because they're gonna have to,
They would have
one
to-
is gonna have to be primary, one's gonna
They
have
would,
to be
well,
secondary. Expand-
that's still a question, because under your ordinance, I would still make the argument that a secondary dwelling is also a principal use. And I think I could argue that.
But
it
the
could go up-
height issue.
But they're only height issue. I'm not making that, and we can address that when the time comes. but-
We'll still be, we'll
I-
still be
I-
here.
But you're choosing to state that this is the way it is going forward, as Kate's saying.
Yeah.
Right now, we're clearly building
You picked
a
the
more,
one that
a more
would be-
significant house on the water, which we're calling, for lack of a better term,
We're just
the
all
principal,
gonna
the
continue
principal
to call
dwelling,
that the principal.
and the inland one, the second dwelling. I don't think it would prevent somebody who wanted to come here in the future, owning the property, and saying, but he has to come before you for the special use permit, saying, well, I've got this house on the water that used to be a principal, but I want to make it secondary, and then you go through the same analysis.
Okay.
Do you want to-
Oh, wait, well, Joe, hold on one sec.
Do we have to, I mean, so Jen, you sent out some language today. Do we have to consider the secondary development, secondary dwelling unit in regards to this language on, has to be for a town
You're
of course.
reviewing a secondary dwelling development, section 403, and it's dated in 2013. That's what you're reviewing this application under.
So I think I had finished describing the two dwelling units and the two accessory structures. I think so we can move on with your questions, Joe.
When designing this plan, did you take into account section 403 F4 of the zoning ordinance, which requires that the two dwellings be separated by not more than 50 feet unless the zoning board of review determines that site circumstances require a wider separation in order to achieve consistency with the design intention of the ordinance or for public safety purposes?
I mean, we took it into account in that when we started designing the property, like it only made sense to us to build or to basically build on the existing footprints because there's existing septic systems, as you heard from Ken Cole, and there's existing utilities going to both locations. So we saw that changing the location would just wreck the site. Basically, you would have to, create a lot more demolition. You would damage trees. You would have to build closer to wetlands. So though we don't comply with the 50-foot separation, we decided that, it didn't make sense to not comply with this one in this case.
Would you, are there other site-related reasons why the 50-foot setback, 50-foot separation is not practical?
Yeah, like near where the bluff house exists, the topography is extremely steep on the landward side. So placing another dwelling unit within 50 feet of that would place it on land that is something like 45 degrees steep. So, and also it slopes steeply down into the wetlands. So putting a house within 50 feet of the bluff house location would be nearly impossible because the topography of the site is really extreme. And then the wetlands are very extensive. And putting a house near the guest house where the secondary dwelling, there would be space, but it's also hemmed in with wetlands a bit. And it's just not an ideal location in terms of, views or anything else. And then you would still have to deal with demolishing a house that's currently on the bluff, that enjoys good views and everything.
Did the planning board address this issue?
The planning board did review the issue and, we supplied a lot of information that showed the topography, that showed the wetland location. And I think we convinced them and therefore we got an approval from the planning board.
And they recommended that the board grant the exception and approve the houses and the locations where they are. Is that correct?
Yeah, they did.
Now, I've got a document here called Berea Block Island Planning Board Supplemental Information, October 24, 2022. Does this help explain further the reasons for the houses being located where they are and not within 50 feet of each other?
Yeah, I think what's principally helpful in this, where it just shows the topography of the site. So does the board have this document now?
The board does not, we're going to have to give that to them.
Aha. So what this does, I can show you, I can hold up some of the key things, but when you look at the topography of a site, it's a little bit difficult to read when you're just seeing the black lines. So what we did in here was create sort of a dark to light map that shows you the topography, that just shows you the kind of extreme topography that exists. And you can see that basically everything that's dark, you can't build there because it's wetlands and it's very steep to them. We prepared this document to show essentially what the actual buildable area of the site is if you take into account wetlands and steepness, which is reduced to this small area here. And then that is what suggested that we should build two houses on each other, not next to each other, rather. And in this document, we also had the design documents that just showed the inspiration behind the house, the materials, and how it should look like in the context of the site.
Plans, Berea Block Island Planning Board Supplemental Information, October 24, 2022. As exhibit.
That's what is that what I'm looking at right now?
Sally, that's exhibit 13.
Thank you.
While we're at it, we mark the planning board advisory, which he just referred to as applicants. Did the Conservation Commission also review this proposal?
They did.
And what were their essential findings?
I mean, their essential findings was to try to preserve the site to the greatest extent possible, focusing on preserving trees and, of course, the wetlands. So
And does the plan that you propose do that better than a plan that might locate the two houses within 50 feet of each other?
yes, clearly, by locating the houses on the existing footprints, we're not, we're minimizing any disturbance to the site and any tree removal.
Sally,
Conservation Advisory is 15?
So in your opinion, is a wider separation than 50 feet necessary to achieve consistency with the design intention of the ordinances on this site?
Yes, given how much the ordinance places on preserving natural beauty of a site, doing anything else would, harm that part of the ordinance.
Are the buildings you have designed compatible with adjacent buildings in form, placement, and design?
Yeah, I mean, they're very modestly in scale and they're using only like natural materials that you'll see all over the island.
Do the buildings as designed relate harmoniously to the terrain and the existing buildings in the vicinity?
Yeah, we really wanted the buildings to feel like they've always been there and they're part of the landscape. So that's why they're, they die into the hillsides as natural materials to look like they're essentially overgrown. And you'll see in the landscape plan that Mark will show later that that's sort of how the whole landscape of the site is designed as well, to just make it look like these are ancient buildings that have always been there.
Are the scale, height, proportions, and design of the buildings proposed, including the roof style, facade openings, architectural style and detailing, and building materials, visually and dimensionally compatible with the adjoining area?
Yeah, the two dwelling units do have flat roofs, but they're very low. They're lower than the existing, quite a bit lower than the existing houses that are there. So though they're a flat roof, they're very low. And then the barn has a more traditional roof line.
Will the proposed use have any negative effects on the island character or the character of the neighborhood?
Not at all.
Will the uses developed adversely affect the established physical and visual pattern of land use in this vicinity?
Nope,
It's making really no change at all in the established pattern, is that correct?
exactly.
Does the proposed development, to the extent possible, reduce dependency on motor vehicles for access?
It doesn't reduce, but it doesn't create any new infrastructure and it utilizes the exact existing driveway. That's another reason, to locate
So
the,
the existing driveway is moved. Am I looking at that correctly? It's
yeah, it enters the site at the sort of southeast point and then it snakes around and then goes up the west side of the site. So that's
sorry.
an existing driveway and we're proposing no changes to it other than.
Oh, so you use the one that wraps at the edge of the build, the edge of
Exactly.
the property. Okay.
Yeah.
I have no
And
further.
it just is there a road now that goes kind of through the middle of the property?
No, that's probably the historic stone wall that you're looking at.
No. I'm looking at on this
Sorry, which drawing are you looking at?
proposed conditions site plan. It shows a road running.
Is that the
through the-
civil? Oh, the civil plan.
I know there's the existing road that runs along the southwest edge.
Yeah, the road that is, basically, we're not proposing any new road. So any
Okay.
road that you're seeing, this is
Yep.
the existing road, and that's we're proposing no changes to it.
So the roads that show on the,
I think that where you're looking is probably the path, a gravel path between the guest house and so like a 5-foot wide gravel path.
gotcha. Thank you.
I have no further questions from Mr. Westergren. And
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
my last witness is Mark Butler.
Good evening, Mr. Butler.
Good evening.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth during the course of this hearing?
I do.
Could you please state your full name?
Mark Butler,
Thank you.
Mark, what's your occupation?
landscape architect.
And how long have you worked as a landscape architect?
22 years.
And did you design a landscape plan for Mr. Goriev on this property?
I did.
I've got a plan consisting of 5 sheets for a residence by Atuna Group, Inc., Landscape Architects, dated May 16th, 2022. Is that the plan you prepared?
That's right.
16 or landscape.
Mark, could you walk the board through your plans, please?
Yeah, so we worked extensively with the architects and with Ken to just make the house look as if it had been surgically placed into the existing landscape. That was the whole idea behind it. That's what we tried to achieve, and I think we did a pretty good job of doing that. We used native plants, native materials. We worked with the existing grades. We did a little bit of softening of the grades on the landward side of the house, just to make some usable flat area there, because it was quite steep as others.
Excuse me, could you speak into the mic, please?
Yeah.
Mark, why don't you change with me because you're tall too?
Sure. Does this stretch out? No? Yeah, so we worked with the existing grades as much as possible. And yeah, we really just wanted the entire property to look much like it does currently. There are some pathways that Magnus had alluded to. So we've got, just for connectability, we have a 5-foot gravel path that comes down the slope. We've cut some stairs into that slope. Those stairs are all native natural stones, antique reclaimed granite. We've got some native boulders that we're going to place as cheek walls around that, some wayfinding lights to navigate from the bluff house over to the guest house. All of that is very, very low voltage light and just strictly for wayfinding.
Did you design the plan to define, soften, and screen the appearance of off-street parking areas and storage areas from abutting properties?
Yes.
Are there any even remotely near abutting properties?
No, not.
Are any changes in grade kept in character with the surrounding properties?
They are.
Are ground covers and grasses proposed that do not require fertilization or frequent watering?
Yes.
Again, you mentioned your lighting plan briefly. Could you describe it in a little more detail?
Yeah, it's just wayfinding. So along the pathway, we've got some very low lighting. We work with a lighting company out of New York City. They're very, very good and have a lot of experience. Most of the lights are, well, all of the lights are pointing down, and some of them are very, very, very low light.
And does the plan comply with the light ordinance and the zoning ordinance of the town of Shoreham?
It does.
I have no further questions for Mr. Butler.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Thank you.
One point early on in this, an issue was raised regarding whether there was access for the property to a public highway. There's access over existing long-used private right-of-way with a public highway, which shows on the 1929 map of the Champlin Farm, but I've also prepared an opinion letter, which I addressed to you, setting forth the terms of the right-of-way and confirming that there is adequate right-of-way, adequate access over that right-of-way for access to a public highway. I'd like to mark that as applicant 17. And with that, I'm done. Unless you have any questions for any of my witnesses.
I had a question, but it'll come back to me. I got distracted by the right of way. Anybody have any questions for Joe or any of the, do we have any butter letters? That's what it's like. I didn't see any in here.
Oh, it was in the very beginning of
Okay. We do have the favorable advisory from the planning board and from conservation, and as Mr. Priestley stated, the Conservation Commission has requested that they preserve as many existing trees as possible. I don't know how they measure that, but
Could I have Mr. Butler just address that because he can't.
Sure. Yeah, we're not removing any trees, so
Are there any hardwood trees on the property?
Is it
to
just
your
all
knowledge?
choke
I mean,
cherry?
there's
and-
cherries and there's some cedars, there's some shads, there's really nothing major, no. And because we're not doing extensive grading and because as Ken had testified, there were the limit of disturbances within the mown areas, we're not taking any trees
Okay,
out.
great, thank you. And the stone walls remain. Any other questions? Anybody, I'm gonna get that. Anybody, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience has any questions or comment? Okay, I will, yeah.
I guess, so what, in the section 403, what does it mean, just a secondary dwelling unit is intended to provide additional housing opportunities for new shore families? What does that mean?
It's, Joe, why don't you?
It essentially means as a way to provide additional houses that don't require full subdivisions. And it's never been interpreted as being required to be limited to anybody, but it's always been written that way. So in this case, it'll be Mr. Correa. He may have a caretaker, he may have his family. But it's not a affordable housing or employee housing or a must earn money on the island housing limitation, never been construed as such.
Yeah, there's a set, you have to have 90,000 square feet per dwelling, is that correct?
Yeah, it goes back to the compromise between, at the time of the zoning ordinance, where people with 5-acre lots wouldn't be able to subdivide into 2. They could use this to create an additional housing unit.
Wasn't to take that use away.
This lot has sufficient developable area.
This has basically sufficient land for 3-lot subdivision. He's doing a more modest development because of the sensitive nature of the property. And which is why it's before you this evening.
And isn't that why the
I think you have
50-foot
more.
separation wasn't intended for a lot?
I think the part of the 50-foot separation was intended. It came up where people were having lots with just the 4+ acres that were needed, turning around and condominiumizing it. And the people were thinking, oh, this is a way to get around subdivisions. Because of the size of our lot, that's not what we're doing here. We're trying to use this to minimize what we have to do to develop what's already there, as opposed to creating any of the new infrastructure on a delicate lot that a subdivision might require.
Thank you. Okay, I will make a motion to close the public hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
All in favor? I'm just going to request a 5-minute break.
Me too. Me too.
Not a bit. Sally, you ready?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, the final hearing of the evening is BI Harbor View Partners 2 LLC, Plat 4, Lot 29, fire number 630 Horneck Road, application by Richard Hayes for a variance from sections 113C and 306C for construction of an addition to a single-family dwelling. Nick?
Thank you, Nicholas Gorham for the applicant. Nice to be here. It's still kind of early, but that doesn't mean I'm going to go a long time. So for sure. So
We
this
can't
is
kid
a-
it be, it's not a whole new application.
What's that?
It's not a whole new application.
No, it's not.
Right.
That's going to be my first point. The rules say that we are to submit previous decisions. I have them with me. This was decided twice favorably by the board. Once in 2020 and then again in 2022. So all of those decisions.
Okay. As exhibit, that's your
Yeah.
exhibit 1, or can I do them as one?
Sure, you can
Okay.
put them any order. you
Or
want.
exhibit 1, 2, exhibit 1 would be a decision, zoning board decision dated February 22. And 2 would be zoning decision dated October 15th, 2020.
So the overall theme, I think that should become apparent to everyone is that what was done was they improved the architecture of the building, but they also made it smaller. So there's a need for even less relief than when we came here in 2020 and 2022. So we hope you'll agree that this is an even better proposal than the two that were approved previously. It's a mansard architecture building. It's more fitting with the island, and I think it'll look better next to the original 1890 building that that is going to be attached to. So without any further ado, I'm going to call our architect as our first witness. Oh, thanks.
We're going to need
Great.
you to be sworn in, so.
Good evening. Could you raise your right hand?
Yes,
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth during the course of this hearing?
I do.
Could you please state your full name?
Carl Sauerbrey.
Could you spell your last name for us?
Sure. Sauerb as in boy, Rey.
Thank you.
Carl, you're an architect?
That is correct.
And how long have you been an architect?
35 years.
And where do you practice your architecture? Or what town do you live in?
West Greenwich, Rhode Island.
Okay, is that where you you practice your architecture as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, I think you prepared the plans for the first two iterations of this, this story, the first two chapters, is that right?
That is
You-
correct.
You designed the buildings.
Yes.
Do you agree that the proposal is more fitting with the historic nature of the project?
I do, thanks in part to some Block Island residents who gave me tours and really brought me into the livelihood of the
Did you
homes.
base this design on the mansard designs that you saw when you toured the island?
I did,
Did you see quite a few of them?
probably about 13 or 14.
Okay. So, the note that you put on the bottom says the subsequent design changes produce slight reductions to the building's area volume while also modifying some building wall planes. Talked about that already tonight, and we're happy to talk about that again. These proposed changes did not affect the previously approved right yard variance, nor did they create any new need for variances. Is that correct?
It is correct.
Okay. In fact, in the new application, the requested relief is 5.13 feet. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And it's shown as 6 feet on some of the plans.
Mm.
Can you explain the difference? Because I know at least one member had questions about the, I think it was this, the soffit.
Well, yeah, for the soffits that we talked about that in the application
Yes.
stage that, and we just had this with another application about, that was very close to the, what was permitted and with everything. So that's what,
So when we had the pre-application, I know that you and Mr. Lamro brought that up. So did you address that? Carl?
I did. I kept the 6 feet that we've had through all 3 iterations. The 5.13 feet goes to the roof overhang. My apologies for not having
No, that's-
understood roof overhang before, but here it's the same.
okay.
What I'd like to do is I've got pre-marked exhibits here, A1 through 5
Correct.
and Z1 through 7.
Do you have that non-bound that you can submit? Because we can't put that in, we can't keep that in a file.
Oh, okay. Well, I have this one, but I've written on it. It's all nice stuff.
Do we
but
have,
it-
do we
it's
have one,
my-
do we have one we have one in the file?
I think we, yeah. Okay. I just
So
want
we just
to.
make sure, Nick, that we're on is this the newest one then? You know, this is dated 2/3/23.
With the exception of Z7, which was a new sheet dated 4/4. That is correct. These are all the same drawings.
Okay, so this says 4/4/23. So Z7
Yes,
is from 4/4/23 and A1 is from 2/3/23 as are the other pages.
yeah.
Architectural plans. So this is exhibit 3.
Exhibit 3. 3,
So we'll mark
Yeah.
this one because we can't keep that. in the
that's
file.
fine. If you don't mind, I'm going to refer to the specific pages by the letter and number that's in the lower right-hand corner of each page.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously, A1, Exhibit 3, A1 is just to show the zoning board the before, that is the previously approved proposal and the new proposal. Is that right? Did
That's
you say
correct.
Before and after?
That's
Is
correct.
that what that means?
Yeah.
Okay. So do these accurately depict the changes that have been made in the style?
They do.
Okay. Page A2. Can you tell me what that is briefly?
Yes, A2
is basically it uses the survey plan and just adds some color for clarification.
Okay, so the blue is the building envelope, is that right?
The buildable building envelope, correct?
Okay.
Compliant with zoning setbacks.
And then if you look at the little orange area between the old building, which is in white with a sort of a gray out portion of color in it, and then the new building, between those two buildings, there's a serrated orange box that has the number 5.13 feet pointing at it. Do you see that?
Yeah, not right now, but yes, I have it
Okay,
memorized.
what is that?
That's essentially, call it the barge to get the boat.
Okay,
If the new proposed addition is in the water, so to speak, as an analogy, and the house is on the land, the only thing compliant is the water. So we're asking to push out
All right.
that 5.13 feet to grab the compliance.
the orange is why we're here, isn't that right?
That is correct.
That's the only relief that we're applying for tonight, is that correct?
In my estimation, yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
So that's what the orange means, is that's what we're
The
asking you
connector.
to approve. And it's much less than in the previous two applications, so. All right, getting on.
Make it smaller. The distance is, the distance.
Speak into the mic, please.
Could you describe how you made that distance shorter?
I did not make that particular distance shorter. It was simply the rectangle beyond that used to be more or less 28 by 40 that now proposed is 30 by 36.
The part that's the majority of the table,
The
in the
majority.
design, or the red, the
yes.
red.
Yes. So since the last two meetings, that connector, so to speak, has not changed. The only thing I adapted was the roof overhang after having learned from you guys at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago about the overhangs.
Thank you.
Yes, that's very good. We're gonna get there.
Yeah, we'll get to the wall thing. That was A2, I think we were talking about for reference. I don't think I made that reference. We just finished talking about A2. A3, can you just briefly explain what this is, why this is included in your package?
Yes, this depicts the actual contour at each corner of the proposed addition for use to determine the height of the building.
Okay, thank you. Next is A4, which is a color-coded presentation of the property. Of course, the orange is the area, again, that we're here to have approved. Total square feet is 68.1, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, and the new main house addition is 1,088.4 square feet.
If that's what it says, yes. I'm sorry, I don't have it in
All
front of me.
right. The red is the old house, is that right? It's referred to as the 1890 house, but Richard told me that it's actually 1868, and he'll explain that if it's of any meaning to anybody here.
It's an old house.
It's an old house, that's for sure. Okay. The relief that's shown in orange on A4, is that the least relief necessary?
It is literally the least relief in my opinion.
Why is it your opinion that that's the least?
It's a common zoning term, but in this case, mathematically, it's literally as far as we needed to go and no further.
Okay, thank you. So, all right. Why don't we go to the next one? All right. A5, can you tell us what that is?
Yes, this is a diagram to ensure the committee that we in fact did our volume calculations from grade up including all areas of the house. And it has the mathematical calculations at the bottom in the table. All of these have been redone since the last meeting in regards to me having brought the building plane in a bit.
Next,
What's the height difference between the two, the original structure and the new structure?
I'm sorry, I don't have the existing
I mean,
height
I'm sure
in
it's
front-
here in one of these plans, but just, if you know, off the top of your head.
I would say about 11 feet or so.
Thank you. I just,
Sure.
next page. What is it that you're trying to show on this page, Z1?
This shows the north or front elevation. And I have some further clarified dimensions in it, along with a more deliberately pointed out average grade, existing grade shown in light gray dashes, and the proposed grade in a solid line,
Okay, thank you.
and a few references to the appendix I.
I also noticed that you have, it looks like it came right out of the zoning ordinance, the wall plane diagrams that
Yes.
I think was being talked about in the previous application, appendix I. Why did you superimpose that on there?
For further clarification as needed for this meeting.
Next page, Z2.
On that previous page there, it says, stone step there.
Yeah.
What is, and then on another, diagram, it was all gray. Is that a patio? Right below those French doors?
There's a stone landing just outside of a door that's facing west that you'll see in the first floor plan. That landing goes across the north edge of that connector wing. And then I'll defer to my client for what's north of there.
All right, so Richard will explain in further detail if you like, Mr. Foster, when you testify.
Sure.
Be sure to
That's
have a
great.
question.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
this,
The next is
stone landing and stuff.
Z2. I think we were going to Z2.
Yes.
Z2
Permeable.
shows, this is really just an elevation diagram, is it not?
I'm sorry, Nick, Z2?
This is Z2, yes.
That's correct. This is the east elevation. This is where we made the more significant modifications since the last meeting in an appendage that I'll describe in a little bit.
Could you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
Yes, this is the east elevation. There's an appendage on the first floor toward the left of it that will answer the question of how we were able to bring the building plane into compliance with regard to the roof overhangs that we talked about in February.
Okay. I just want to focus on it says varied roof height, and I have that circled. Why is that important, the varied roof height?
In my interpretation of Appendix I, and I did have a conversation with somebody in Block Island who's in the room here. It helps delineate between the wall planes, but in my opinion, that wasn't really meant to distinguish between building planes. So in this case here, it helps us describe the joints between what ends up being 10 wall planes.
Okay. Anything else with this exhibit that you'd like to describe or explain to the board? This is Z3 again, by the way.
That I did in fact learn my lesson from February, and I drew two stone steps in, one that has been existing. I don't know if it's been there since the 1800s, but I have a stone, two stone steps drawn in that were not previously drawn in.
Wait, I'm sorry, what page are those shown on?
They're particularly relevant on Z5 that we haven't gotten to yet, but
Okay.
you'll see a real, a slight, solid line that indicates the stone steps.
All right.
How do you get in and out of the original residence, the antique house?
Judith, I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
I'm sorry, Sally. I asked, what is the location of the entrance to the original house, or is there no exterior entrance to that?
There is an entry, and it was what your chairperson had asked in February. It's located toward the west side of the south elevation of the existing house.
Could you point it out?
Yes.
Maybe on the
Take me
side
to a page.
here, so these for that.
So just remember, the stenographer doesn't know, understand this and there.
That's okay.
She just can't see this
Just
and
get me
there.
to the right page,
This is
and-
just, I just want to address,
Yeah,
Okay,
so what page is that? That's
We're on page Z3.
Z3, okay.
so I see the door. This has always been indicated as the door.
Yeah.
Is there a stoop? Is there anything you step out onto?
There shows looks like a pad.
It
that what
is,
you were just describing?
it's a very, very old stone in the ground. Believe it or not, you step right out onto the ground, and the thing has been there for a very long time.
And nothing more than that?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Z4 is, looks like you're trying to capture the width of that section of the house. Is that right?
This is really showing the west elevation
Okay.
that depicts the existing house in the foreground and the newer house in the background. One side note on this elevation, admittedly, when I did my tabulation for building height that was asked about in February, I only had done it for the new addition to really give a worst case scenario. But as you can see on this elevation, the ground is higher. This is a sloping grade. And if we include the height with the existing building also, then we essentially gain another 15 inches in the height of the ground. So I just wanted to make that note.
So the four corners are four corners inclusive of the original house and the new portion.
The four corners that I did for the tabulation for the height on purpose were just the four corners, so to speak, of the proposed area that on a previous drawing was all in blue. I did that because it was a little fuzzy when I read, and I wasn't quite sure in the ordinance whether it meant our new work or the new and existing. So in this case here, the way I would answer your question is that it would now include the multiple corners, maybe 8 of them or so.
The
That
whole
the,
thing is shorter than it was.
yeah, the way I describe it is the average ground goes up, therefore my building is not as tall.
Next. Z5, and again, we see Appendix I superimposed on your drawing here. Why is it back in your drawing again?
Admittedly in hopes of using it today, but it's a little distant from me. So
Oh.
the Appendix I is really in my subjective opinion, a really fascinating way to, ensure design. And so when we have questions, I just wanted to be able to refer to those here.
Okay, so actually helpful. As I understood, each wall plane must be less than 45 feet. And the wall planes, which are depicted on these drawings, are 20.4 feet, and you can see that how you determined the 20.4 feet because it's shown as such at I think it's the bottom of this diagram on the left-hand side, which would be part of I believe the old house. Is that right?
I don't have the number in front of me, but you are correct in description.
You can use this.
Okay.
No,
Just as long as the stenographer can hear you.
Okay.
Okay,
42.6.
I have 3 different wall planes for each sector of the building. 20.4, which we just talked about, I believe is 22.25
That's correct.
and 30.
Assuming that we're not going to overhangs and instead going to face the foundation, that's correct.
All right. But even, okay,
There's still, the point is with all 10 wall planes, they're well under 45 feet. The longest one that I have is 37.8 feet.
okay. And even if you added the overhangs, it wouldn't exceed the 45, would it?
That is correct.
40, what you're saying is this part is 42.65, is that right?
Not on the south face that Nick, that our lawyer was presenting. But more or less on the south face, it's 20.4 for the existing building at the lower left. 16.25 plus 6 feet of our connector equals 22.25 through the connector.
Which is 42 point.
Right, I think
Oh.
the question is, why aren't they considering that one wall plane?
Oh, very good question, because of the varied roof height. So we have a 2-story building, more or
But
less
the-
in the existing,
Okay.
and then the connector is only single. And that fits into one of the diagrams based on a similar, a shared facade, but a
Does the
varied roof
job-
height.
You don't, you need it? Right, okay, I get it. And if it's under that 45-foot rule, got it. Okay.
Yeah, and the height difference is pretty extreme. If you happen to go back to Z3, you'll see a tall building, a short building, and then a tall again, and it fits right into that description of a delineation between wall planes in Appendix I.
The last one is 30. Is there a way you can demonstrate that with this drawing Z5? Just, I see 14.6 and then I think 13.63. But that would, no, that can't be
Yeah.
right. How did you get 30 for the final portion of the building? The final wall plane measurement, excuse me.
The only wall plane that I have is 30, that's 30 feet is the north side of the building.
Oh, there it is on the top.
Because, yeah, because
You're
the
right.
front porch is not 6 feet deep. We wanted to limit it to 5 to keep the footprint intact. So if it had it been 6, it would have been 3 wall planes instead of 1, but in this case, it's 1.
So it's on the, for information, it's the top. I was reading from the bottom. You read the.
The
top
30.
most. Yeah, okay. So, let's move on to the building plane issue that was addressed earlier tonight. 75 feet is the maximum, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, and what is your measurement for this? And if you could, please explain to the board how you computed it.
Yes, again, my apologies. Last time I was very appreciative that I got that the overhangs are included. So everything is shown very much in detail on sheet Z7, which is the new
Alright.
sheet this month.
We'll go to.
So what Z7 does is it takes a cross section, takes a slice right through the longest part of the building from west to east. So it goes through the existing house, then it goes through the connector, and then it goes through the proposed new one. And we were in fact exceeded, without me knowing it at the time, in February. What I've done since then is I pulled what I'll call the east appendage of the proposed building back. It used to be 2 feet and change, about 2 foot 2 inch. And this was the great room, and it was where you'll see double windows on the east elevation. It's a single story pop out. It had a little more architectural beauty at 2 foot 2 inch, but again, we were over. So I pulled that thing back to literally under a half a foot. I subsequently pulled in all the roof overhangs to distances that then had us compliant, such that right now we are at 74.2 feet in total building plane for our longest plane. The way that I got the measurement on the west side at the existing building was to go out onto the site and to measure the actual overhang. And the way I got it on the east was to, again, adapt the fascia. So I went ahead and already did all the details that you'll also see on Z7 that is literally ready to build for a builder. It's almost like a blueprint ready detail that would ensure the committee that at least in ink, everything works. And I also subsequently reached out to building inspection And we are ready to be able to stand by in the field, those things happening, such that the construction stays compliant through construction. I'm sorry, the compliance stays put during construction.
Thank you.
Right, the only exhibit we haven't examined is Z6. I believe we skipped over that one to get to Z7, so you could explain the building plane. What is the purpose of Z6? Why
Just-
is,
Just to basically give reassurance that we have a mansard. So the second floor is where the roofs come in, and it was
mansardish looking?
that gives the proof.
All right. We have a site plan. I think you're supposed to submit a site plan as part of the,
Yeah, the site plan was in,
it's from the Calderon.
is it, it's not in this big packet?
I don't think so. I have an extra here.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right, great.
So this is exhibit four.
Four.
It's a site plan by South County Survey. 4423.
If you really carefully examine the first proposal that was approved in 2020, you'll see that there's more land on the second one and this one. That's because Mr. excuse me. That's because Mr. Hayes went to the planning board and added land to obviate the need to get into issues about other setbacks that could have been more difficult to deal with in front of the zoning board. In other words, he added more land, so he doesn't need a setback. He doesn't need any setback relief, except for the 5.13 relief. That's it. So it actually, I'm not saying it makes your job easier, but it might, because there's less that Mr. Hayes and his company need to ask for. So,
Okay.
does the board want to ask any questions of
Any questions?
the witness?
You've been thorough. Thank you. Thanks very much. The total living area is based off of, if we, as a board, we're looking at it, we're looking at the, I think the easiest for me to read is the red, yellow, right? And this is what we got. The total living area says it's 2654. But how is that number? How is that number? Can you speak to that?
I'm sorry, you're asking, if-
So the second floor, which was the Z6. The total living area on the application says 2654.
yes,
Is the upstairs only less than 1,000 square feet? I meant without doing math. Let me just. Writing that, please.
In the middle.
the second
But
floor,
not the porches. Connector is living space. That's 1724. So
Yeah, just take it.
is there a second store?
Which story is this?
There's better upstairs, right? The original house has a second story, correct?
yeah, the second floor is 822.38 square feet
In the new part or this whole thing?
in the new portion.
Could you repeat that number again? I'm sorry.
Yes. And you know what? I believe it's in the proposed only. I don't have my math in front of me. I can grab that. But 822.38.
And that was the existing second floor?
It definitely includes the new. And I have to check my notes to see whether it includes the existing also.
That'd be a,
I don't
I
think
mean,
that-
even if you're,
Based on this being the 1,000, and that being five.
right.
It's a full second floor.
Yeah.
But no, but
There's
you,
no-
but will you lose space on the second floor from your dormers? No, you lose, well, you look at joggins. Yeah, look at that. You've got, you've got joggins for the, and the beauty of a master roof is that you do have more room upstairs because you have more
So
headroom,
eight-
but
Is 8.4 the first
Eight
or second
twenty-two
floor?
makes it like for the second.
Right, makes it-
but not-
This is the first floor.
the
Yeah.
second story, of the what's the square footage of the second story of the original house? I guess that's,
He's trying to figure that out.
okay,
I-
sorry.
I do not have that with me. My apologies.
Second floor. This.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't have the math in front of me, but it's probably about 250 square feet. And what I did with the tabulation of proposed living spaces obviously include both the existing and the new. Went thoroughly through to the exterior limits thereof of the spaces for the entire house, including undulations. So in dormers, I went out the dormer and back. So. And even though the second floor of the existing was not full height, there's a standard that we have where we go up to a knee wall height, which we also did in this case for the existing. I could provide those to the committee. My apologies, I don't have them with me
I'm
here.
just, sorry, I'm just. 1724 plus.
Here's how he gets to the 26.
Yeah.
The computer helps quite a bit with these numbers. So.
I'm just gonna try to make it bigger.
What's the number? 2654. And then what do you think that upstairs was gonna be about 250
That's a wild guess on the fly, yes.
on the,
So they're listed on Z5.
Oh,
Where, Mark?
On Z5,
I think that's we need to clarify, because just because the application says 2654, which doesn't leave you a whole, it leaves you about 150 square feet of upstairs. If,
108, if you.
if the 822 is just the new addition, which sounds more likely than,
so on page Z5, it says
Ah.
existing and new first floors are
Z5?
1600.14,
first floor,
first floors.
but we're talking
The
second.
existing second floor is 232.03.
there we go. Thank you. I knew I had it somewhere.
And the new second floor is 822.38.
Z what?
Z5.
Z5 upper left.
But it still isn't. There's no second floor on the connector.
That's correct.
So it's just second floor, okay,
It
gotcha.
is there, you're right. Because it's small.
He did.
Does
Color,
it say
color
that?
code.
Right.
So
Does it say the existing house?
existing and new first floor is 16, which is different than what, it says 1600, but we'd come up with something different. This is where we're just coming into this questioning, because the number that we're coming up with is different than that number.
Yeah, these are all the calculations, and I appreciate your help with that for finding out the finished square footage of the
Right.
spaces.
You just have to make sure that the application is correct, because when
Hmm.
all these things, when they go to issue building permit, as you know.
Yeah.
It needs to all be in sync.
Yes.
Yeah, because A4 has the first floor at 1,724.6.
Mhm.
And on Z5 here,
Yeah.
it says
1600.
that the existing and the new first floor is 1,600.14.
Yeah,
Does-
that's the classic difference between footprint and living space right there.
So these numbers, the is the footprint that include the patio or is that,
They do not include porches. So yeah, the classic difference between finished living space and
Gotcha.
footprint includes
So
things
you're
like
gonna
porches, et cetera.
all those things, walls?
But your
deduct
living,
it.
your floor area for total living area is, the definition is on this form. It's pretty much everything that's inside. You don't deduct for closets or for, right. Like that's where I think there's the discrepancy.
Yeah, and this is an unending issue out there, especially when there's condo development,
So we-
whether you
probably-
measure to and from. So what I do is I include the stair with the first floor and I don't include it with the second floor. In other words, I'm not going to count it twice, is what I do.
But the first floor still is different.
Yeah, again, there's things like porches that are included in footprint. To be candid, I even included the front steps with the footprint just to cover the bases. And then this is really just the finished spaces to the exterior limits of those spaces.
Yeah, to get the 1724-6, I did not include any of the porches. I just
Okay.
included
The
colors,
red, orange and yellow.
red, orange, and yellow.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you and I might be measuring to different spots. So there's face of foundation wall, there's face of
Well,
stud.
we're measure, if we measure the square footage on A4 of the existing house, it says 568.1,
Yes,
and then 68.1 is the orange,
yes.
1088.4 is the yellow.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking green.
Yep.
That comes to 1724.6. And then if you add, which is different than 1600, which is, it's 124 square feet
Mhm.
difference.
So,
And that is fenestration and,
yeah, thicknesses of walls, et cetera, which add up a lot more than people think. So when people start to draw houses with graph paper, they always draw the wall as one line, and the real answer is it's not.
Well, I think he does put that in. If you look on the A4, the note that begins with the numeral 25, it says what the building footprint is.
we're not talking footprint
We're
though.
talking about
We're
living
talking about the
area.
living area
I
on the
understand.
application.
And you measure from the
At the
exterior
end, Rob.
limits. So you're not deducting exterior walls.
So and this is the reason we have questions. So my question to you guys is it exterior limits of the space, or is it exterior limits of the space plus all
Okay,
the wall?
I'll read you what the application says. The floor area living, total floor area, area measured in square feet from the exterior limits thereof
Yeah.
of that portion of a residential building which is used for habitation purposes, but excluding garage space, unfinished basements, and exterior spaces such as porches and decks. But it does say from the exterior limits thereof. So from the outside of the wall is what,
Oh.
it's this calculation that
Okay,
that we need to have accurate.
And
okay, yeah, that's different than a lot of the condo docs. So I measured a sheetrock.
so the purpose for this exercise is basically to make sure that it can be reconciled correctly when they issue a building
And because
permit.
we have this large house ordinance, all these things, we're like, every application that we're getting right now, we have to analyze because everybody's getting so close that we just had it on Scotch Beach, an application that was very similar in pushing the,
Well, how would you like to
I-
address it?
so-
I mean, we can address it any way you want.
we could,
We could,
Complying with those steps.
we just need we need these accurate numbers, and I don't think it's something that you could do on the fly. It's 9 o'clock at night and.
oh no, I don't think we can do it now. I don't know, do you,
Would-
Carl, do you think you can do it now or?
No, I think that I'd prefer to have you
Okay.
take the time.
I'd
I
have
mean, we
two
could-
questions if that was okay. I don't want to overdo my question. One would be, do we measure all the way out to exterior face of stud when we're doing square footage of living space?
What I'm reading is the exterior limits thereof.
But thereof of space or thereof of space plus wall thicknesses?
It's the
I'm gonna say that-
definition.
I'm gonna
the
defer
the
to our attorney.
definition is right we're reading it to you. So we go to the zoning ordinance, floor area living, total floor area measured. I mean, just read. what
So-
the-
Could you read it one more time, Jen?
Thinking like architects, there's space and then there's construction. So that doesn't say whether it's space. So why don't I just change it to exterior face of stud? That's what I'm guessing. Is that
Yeah.
what? Okay, I'll change it to that. And then the other question I have to make sure to,
Hmm?
because this is
Way to
this is
measure
my
interior.
thing. Um,
It does. It's not- It
Okay.
doesn't make sense
It doesn't
to
make
me
any
that
sense at
that's how it,
okay,
we measure space. But
That's what it is.
okay.
But that's
And then the
but
last
this is what
question.
it says. We need to have that accurate to.
Yeah, I'm as into accuracy as a committee would be also. It's very important to me. So let me ask one more question.
Exterior limits of.
Yeah, when there are knee walls, if there happens to be an eave space in the existing house, let's say that's about 1.5 feet tall, do we still include that, or do we do like in condos where they say go up to 5 feet and start the measuring
New
there?
living
or-
Space counts.
Exterior, yeah, you're. 'cause you're-
Okay.
Yeah.
So even if it's just a tiny little space, okay,
it all
then
counts.
I can do the numbers fairly quickly that way. I appreciate your help with guiding me how to do this.
But do you have any other questions that you want?
Yes,
him to
any other
answer later?
questions? Okay,
On the building plane, if you're comfortable with any of this.
so I'd like to, could we leave this open to get the accurate number at for our next meeting?
Sure. That's fine. I think that's what you want, so
I
gonna
would
say
prefer
sounds-
that. I would
sounds-
prefer to have just so that everybody in the building department can take the application and make sure that you're not getting thrown around again,
Understood.
back
That's
through.
Sure.
We want,
That's,
and I
Makes sense.
appreciate you making the effort and coming with all this information and having the little drawings up in the corner of the appendix actually is actually a nice.
so he should
Cool.
come with a presentation. It could be one sheet of paper, really, probably be simpler that way.
Yeah, we
Showing
don't need- I don't
exactly
think-
what you're trying to calculate. for-
Our numbers are just, they just keep, because and now it makes sense why they're different.
Mhm.
Because we see it one way.
Yes, and architects see everything a different way.
Okay.
For clarity.
So do you?
And
want to-
then contractors see the completely different stuff.
And I-
Do you
I
wanna
don't
do
think
that?
You would need to show any drawings of
I
it. You
just-
could just make a statement that you made these
Okay.
measurements from.
Yeah.
Okay,
that'd be
sure.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Oh. Okay, for the architect, anybody else? All right, we do have a question from the audience. Mr. Helterland, are you going to be testifying? Do you need to be sworn in?
I cannot hear him.
Okay, I'm going to be, we're going to be swearing in.
Good evening. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth during the course of this hearing?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Rob Helterline.
Could you spell your last name for us?
That's HELTERLINE.
Rob.
I simply wanted to point out that floor area does not always equal living area. If it's a story and a half or a story and a quarter. So at what point the knee wall or you have to limbo into the corner would not be included as living area?
Right.
And that, for example, is what represents the second floor of the original building. The floor area is not the same as the living area because of the encroaching ceiling.
Right, now we understand that. It's just the way that the application, it was all about the way the application's written and how it reads and the difference in the calculations on that to the plans to what we were coming up with.
Mhm.
I understand the knee wall. Sometimes the knee wall space does count. It just depends, like we talked about the height. And, same reason why people are required to have variances when they put a dormer on, even though the footprint's not getting any bigger, the living space is. So, but thank you.
Okay, so we'll present it on
May.
paper without the need for a diagram for the May meeting.
Nick, I'm sorry. Can you speak into the mic, please?
I'm sorry, yes. As I understood from Member Cyranack, it doesn't even need to be a diagram. It just needs to be an equation.
I think that's
If
fine.
everyone else
I think
agrees
that's fine.
Is that,
And there's, everybody will be here. I'm not going to be here, so that's just to make sure that you're not wasting anybody's time.
Right.
I think the
No, that-
diagrams make it more confusing in some ways.
Not necessarily.
We do have a letter from an abutter, to whom it may concern, as a property owner within 200 feet of the subject property, I do not support the application by Block Island Harbor Views 2 LLC for a variance from sections 113C and 306C for the addition of 36 by 30 on the northeast side of the original structure with appendage and porches. Rebuild existing kitchen and add 5.13 feet in order to connect addition. The zoning board should deny the requested variance. I'm sorry, I'm unable to be at the public hearing held on April 26, 2023. Thank you, Catherine G. Goria, but it doesn't say where she's from.
Oh.
But she spells her name like that.
Okay.
Yep. Doesn't give her address. Okay, any other questions for them before I close the public hearing?
Are you gonna close it or continue?
Continue it rather. Sorry.
Do
Well,
you
it's only nine
want,
after.
just a quick question of procedure. Do you want Mr. Sauerbrei to be here?
Um,
Perhaps we could know and maybe it would be helpful.
What if there's a question?
yeah, if there's.
No, that's why I'm asking.
Safe, better safe than sorry.
Okay, sounds good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
I will make a motion to continue the hearing to the May 24th meeting.
Second
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. We have,
decision.
I can do it. I can do it. All
Sally,
right. Sally.
Sally, Kate's gonna do a decision on the fly. Can you take it down for me if she's?
Sure, sure.
Can I go home?
Yes,
you're
you can go.
Doing that, right?
Susan can get, you know.
Do you want me to just, before you start this, volunteer to do the town one?
Sure, that'd be great.
decision? Nobody has any problem with that one, the bathrooms?
That'd be great.
No bathroom issues.
I
right?
can do Goria. I'll do Goria. Not Goria, the abutter Goria. Okay, so on the fly,
Microphone right up to you. There you go.
right here, okay. So I'm folding an appeal, either you uphold it. You uphold the appeal or you overturn the
Overturn.
decision?
Overturn the
I'll make a
vi-
motion
the-
to overturn the decision, the notice of violation. Okay, yeah. I will make a motion to overturn the notice of violation issued by the zoning official of the town of New Shoreham for Aldo Leone and Andiamo Zeke LLC, Plat 6, Lot 89, Weldon's Way, for an application for an appeal by Aldo's Bakery of a notice of violation issued by the zoning official dated August 15th, 2022. This is based on the following findings of fact. I find that the definition of a gaming device is applicable to the subject carousel. Right? What do you want to say? It's coin operated. It's plugged in. It does not have an operator. And it's there for the amusement. By the You don't agree with that?
No, I don't.
You think it's an amusement park ride?
No,
I think we should just limit it to, we don't think it's an amusement park ride.
right.
And let it
that's
go
right.
there from there.
No findings of fact.
No, but we don't have to say what we think it is.
We don't
You
have-
can just say the notice of violation was based on it being an amusement park under the prohibition on amusement parks and rides. That's what the notice of violation was based on.
You want to do it?
No. You don't want me to do it either, but
Okay.
that's it's really important that we not wade into
Get you into it. Okay.
whether this is.
So the following that so I'm finding that it's not an
So the notice of violation said that it was prohibited use because it was a ride. An amusement.
Right, and I'm finding that
prohibited
it's
amusement
not,
Parks and rides.
and it's not an amusement
It's
park
not a
ride.
Park and it's not a ride.
I find that it's not an amusement park ride,
Right.
period.
So the applicant testified that the carousel was a coin-operated kiddie ride using an industry term, which I guess we accept. I mean, I accept that that is an industry term describing a piece of equipment. Remember,
Nancy,
Nancy, yes.
yep,
Nancy talked about all the other kinds of things that were considered by the people who make these things, that these are coin-operated kiddie rides. That's what they're called. So they said this is not an amusement park or ride because it's this other thing that's recognized by the industry. It's a specific
the
thing.
appellant testified, or they didn't testify,
Their attorney
or their attorney asserted on behalf of their client that it
it's not an amusement.
is not an amusement ride by definition of,
The vendor that you purchase these things from, I mean, the people who make
Right.
coin-operated kiddie rides don't make,
right, but
Ferris
that's,
wheels.
but we don't know that.
Hmm?
We don't know that.
No, we don't know that.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
They
Would
did
it be
test.
easier for me to draft something to be voted on?
They don't have a quorum in May.
We don't have a quorum. We're just trying to get this so that they don't.
Oh, I thought we were
Even though-
down, I thought we were just down by, how many are we down by? How many are you down by in May?
Just stop. So we're just gonna say that we find that it is not an amusement park ride.
I'm sorry, we're just gonna say what?
It is not an amusement park ride, but I have to have a findings of fact. It's like, I can't like just say that it's, you can't.
Yeah. That's why I waded into the kiddie ride thing, because it is another thing. It's
But
not
it,
that
it
thing.
falls under the definition of a gaming device.
A gaming device.
that's in our-
definition
but that's-
states that it plugs into a wall,
Mhm.
you can put coins into it, and it's for the amusement of the user.
Yeah,
But we're talking about 3-year-olds.
So
but that's what I said.
yeah,
You have it? Jen's got it. The definition, it fits. The subject carousel fits the definition of a gaming device. That's it.
yes.
Okay, is that clear?
Second,
That's my finding of fact, Sally.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry.
It's
So a motion made and seconded.
Steve seconded.
Yes.
All in favor? Aye.
Um, Jen, I'm gonna add everything that was just said. I'm going to put everything that was just said into the record between Judith and Kate. Is that all right if I do it like that?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Then we can.
All right, thanks.
It's- I mean,
Now they have to apply for it.
do we have to?
Town, they have to go when they get this.
so yeah, now town council.
We're okay.
Exactly.
Do we want to say that a letter of complaint was received? No. it's not
Second.
really- we're not gonna- Letter of complaint being received. Or
Cannot be issued unless it's a letter of, there's a complaint form.